Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hopefully you can hear me if you're here with us live today on January 18th, 2022. Welcome back, 2022, first Fab stream of the year, and it's been interesting. We had a little technical issue.
Can you guys hear us?
Weirdly, the solution, you'll never believe it. I'll let Steven talk about the complex solution.
What's up, everybody? Can you hear us? Do we sound okay? Everything sound good? We kind of had to redo some things. You know what happened? I just had to restart the computer.
That worked?
Yeah.
It's like I'm being on the phone with my mom. So she's 4 hours deep into an issue. It's like, did you reset it yet? No, let me try that.
Why is the printer printing the settings? Checked all like literally isolated from first point to last point. Last point was the computer, and it was like, well, that's where things are going wrong. Reset the software, reset the computer, and it worked. So that's unsettling. Why is it that suddenly your audio just isn't working on a computer?
I mean, just like us humans, sometimes the machines need breaks.
Maybe. But it was fine yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, we're here. We're going to talk about the bands. We're going to talk about the erratas. I want to talk about the generic cards. I want to talk about generics.
Now, here's something
I want to talk about tails.
I need everyone out there to know.
I want to talk about Everfest.
Is that Steven and I haven't talked about any of this.
No, none.
0%.
We honestly don't really talk unless it's on the stream. For real.
Well, part of the reality, even yesterday you were talking about some of the shows and movies you watched while you're on break.
Yeah.
Is that if I ask you questions outside the stream, then either I'm going to have to re-ask you falsely.
Yeah.
The same, like.
Which is, that's contrived.
And or listen to the same story.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do the same to you.
No, nobody wants that.
So,
and everyone out there knows, when it's
you can tell. You can. There's a.
It's fake.
What's that? There's that quality where like you can tell when something's like not quite right.
Yeah.
Like your brain.
The opposite of authenticity.
There's some word for it. Some psychological.
Oh. Well, that sounds very smart.
Anyways, lots to talk about. Fab is in a fascinating state right now, and I'm curious to hear the hottest takes.
My hair is also in a fascinating state. I've been deciding to grow it back out.
Okay.
Like not out like you, obviously. Yeah, I don't think I can get that out, but
I bet you could.
I really need a haircut now. But it's like you go into the barber shop and you catch 7 diseases anymore.
Yeah.
So
I had a haircut scheduled and that got canceled.
Yeah, but the sides need to come down. I think we got to try to put the focus on what I've got left up here.
What do you have anything in mind? And what
you
you're
kind of push the vision down. It's like, look at all this hair Zach has. You don't have to pay attention to the top. Like,
that's right.
It's
a distraction down here.
Back. It's like a ramp back to the back of my skull. And you don't want to be the old guy, that's trying to fake it. That's like, really, you really just don't have it, and you need to just let it go.
That was part of me deciding to grow my hair out again. Is that my hair started thinning? I was
Keep that distraction. Yeah.
Well, it's mainly like there will come a point where I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not
hold on to it.
I'm not quite at that point yet, but like
that's kind of the midlife crisis.
I look at the horizon and I can see that moment potentially existing. So it's like, if I'm ever gonna do it, let's do it and then be done.
You can look at the horizon through the back of my head, practically at this point.
Well, actually, if you were here and the horizon's that way, I could just see it back of your head.
What's up? Okay, so let's talk about some flesh and blood things, would you? So,
what happened?
Here's a couple of things that I think are.
Why did it happen? How did we get here?
A couple of things that are very real.
Why do I exist?
If you look at the difference between Monarch and Everfest, Monarch and Tails. Tails first edition, way less demand. Strictly. You go to TCG player sales history or whatever. Yep. Monarch at hundreds of dollars. Tails sitting at probably MSRP-ish, 80, 90, 90, 96. So that's going on.
I think we have Tails in stock on the website.
Yep.
And have for a minute, which is unheard of.
Correct. So then, everybody who previously you could just, find a box and sell it for $8,000 or whatever. Now it was like, oh no, I can't do that anymore. So I'm not gonna, buy as many first edition boxes and just, again, feel like they have some, because it doesn't make any sense when you can buy something and then it's immediately worth 5 times what you bought it for.
Well, you couldn't.
In what world does that ever happen?
In a lot of places, you couldn't just buy it and do that.
Right.
It's like our subscription service particularly was notably different than the average experience, which people were saying is partly a problem because stores are selling boxes for $300, $400, $500. Some websites are selling it for $300, $400, $500, and people that just actually want to buy it to play Because with Monarch specifically, Unlimited didn't come out until
Right.
Is Tales Unlimited out? It did come out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But Monarch Unlimited was like a month later, and so if you weren't willing to pay at that time hundreds of dollars extra, you had to wait a month to get the cards in play.
Which is its own problem. An impossibility.
Yep.
See, this is why a collectible game can never. We talked about this before. It's never. No one's ever. Not everybody is always ever happy. Which welcome to life. But
yeah,
it's like if the price is stable and supply is stable, players are happy, can play the game, great. But then it's like, but it's not as valuable. My cards aren't as valuable, so I don't feel like I should buy as many. And then if your boxes are $8,000, I say that hyperbolically, kind of. Then your players are like, I can't buy and play, so I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah.
So that has happened. So then we got Tales. So now we're coming into Everfest. I think it's true that pre-orders and stuff we see for the first time are coming into MSRP or lower for a new set. So that's happening. Good thing or bad thing?
I mean, I think your point, and this could be a whole podcast.
I don't have a point.
Of this,
that's why I didn't tell you before we started.
This could be a whole podcast episode. It's really a stream episode. We may end up getting to play a game. We may not. I have some Briar decks built post-ban Errata that maybe we'll check out. If we don't check them out this week, obviously it'll happen at some point. But I think the thing you said that's very it's worth reiterating is no matter what the condition is of the market and the price of this stuff, someone's going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
And some people are going to potentially be very happy. Even as an example, we're never selling boxes for an exorbitant amount of money, but putting our subscriptions in stock at any point and selling out in 10 minutes is a good problem.
Yeah.
Like as a retailer,
don't hate that.
Every box I can get, I can sell is a good state of things to be in. Mm-hmm. And even retailers getting to charge $300, $400, $500 a box. At the time, I mean, I think that's really incredible marketing because stores, any product they can get, they can sell at a high margin, which is going to give the store a very positive view on this game particularly.
Kind of gets those communities established. But you kind of have that dual problem of like, the store is interested in selling you these expensive boxes, but is anyone interested in buying them?
Well, and back in the Monarch days, it's like even if a store was listing, let's say them at $200 when the set came out, they're making typically, let's say it's a $100 box, they're going to pay $50 for it. They make $50 off that transaction. If you get it sell for $200, you're making triple.
Yeah.
It's double the revenue, but triple the amount of profit that you would make from that box.
So that gets stores involved early.
And still at $200, you're hundreds of dollars less than market. Mm-hmm. And I saw stores using all their product to do draft and sealed events, which I think is very smart.
That's smart, yeah. That's the way to do it.
And those are going to sell out, and you're going to have an active community, and that's a great way to. Mm-hmm. All that said, what I think we're seeing now, right, is Monarch comes out, and there's a lot of signs that become pretty clear that a lot of things happen. I mean, I think CCG/TCG hype in general over the past 6 to 9 months has calmed down.
I mean, it was unsustainable. It was bubbled up.
We're also getting far enough into the game that it's impossible. Like when things went really crazy, there were only 2 sets, or the 3 sets, Crucible, but it was sold out.
Yeah.
And so there's a finite amount of stuff, and there's only so much of it made, and so. From Crucible to Monarch, we had like a 9-month gap.
Yeah.
And so anyone that is buying it that wants to play, there's only so much product you can buy. Anyone that's buying it to collect or invest or have a whatever, it's very focused. But every time a new set comes out, it's getting wider how much stuff there is to be grabbing, right? So then the early stuff, I think, in time is going to get more and more and more and more valuable. But then you start seeing all these signs that Monarch probably got printed a lot more than the previous sets. Mm-hmm. We don't have the print run data yet. That's still the big question mark. And you have stores that tried to sell boxes at $300 or $400, didn't sell, and now let's sell them at $350 and $300.
Market kind of is correcting.
And
over the
I think
course of
the market is down to $180 or $170 on average. Is a pretty normal range for those Monarch boxes, which is for a TCG 4 to 8 months after the release of a set. For a first edition box to still command double MSRP is actually not common. Mm-hmm. Like when Pokemon was just normal, right, and Magic was normal, that's very crazy. For that quick of a even though it's cooled down, that's still wild. So But I think what happens is in the Monarch phase, every store in the world is saying, I'm going to buy as many of these as you'll sell me. It's the free tendies phase, right? Every player who can get boxes at MSRP, it's free Tendiesville, right? It's like on our subscriptions, we had to put a cap in place because the people were trying to get so many because it was so obviously good of a deal.
Right, because it was easy to see the value in that.
What happens is, stores, traditional processes, they're submitting numbers to distributors. And a lot of times they'll submit numbers to multiple distributors, and they'll submit numbers that are bigger than what they actually want to order.
This is a key. Everyone needs to understand this, that happens in this industry. There is the accuracy of information from retailer to distributor is so bad because every retailer is used to being allocated on high demand products. So the strategy is, okay, normally there's a 20% allocation to whatever number that I submit. So I'm going to submit a giant number to 6 different distributors, even though I would never actually want that much product. Yeah. And then they're going to all cut me down 10 to 20%, and I might get the exact amount that I want.
And even hypothetically, if you know that Fab can't print, like back in before Monarch, they're not going to be able to print enough Monarch to fully satiate demand, or they won't print that much. Technically, at that particular moment, why would you not tell every distributor, I want 1 million?
Yeah. Or as many as
10,000.
We think they'll all sell.
Yeah, and suddenly going into Monarch, you now went from, probably like when we first started getting involved in early 2020, there were a couple hundred stores that were buying and carrying and doing anything with Fab. By the time you're going into Monarch, which is the next set, thousands of stores. The average store, let's just say they want to order 100. It's like going from 200 stores, 20,000 boxes, right? To give them all of what they want, the 100 boxes. 2,000 stores all trying to order 100 is crazy.
Yeah.
Like that.
But you see that, right? And then so what happens? We don't know, right? So you have to imagine, does LSS come in to tell us of Aria like doubling the print run from Monarch to try to satiate as much demand, first edition demand as possible? Meantime, every retailer has said, man, every set of Flesh and Blood that I've ever ordered just can sell like gangbusters on first edition.
Even the unlimited of Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising.
Yeah.
After Crucible
extremely
came out,
well.
They came and they would sell immediately.
Yeah. So all of your first edition stuff, it's like, first edition comes in and I can get a really good price return on this. So then it's like maybe retailers amplify their Tales of Aria numbers, LSS way amplifies their print run, and then finally people are coming to terms with the fact that like, okay, well we've hit where demand was at the time, and now I didn't immediately sell out of all my first edition product, so now it's kind of normalized and I'm sitting on boxes.
Yeah, which has a couple knock-on effects, right?
Yes.
One of which is the investor collector class of player or of consumer person.
Human being.
Once it's not obviously just selling out and worth more, now you would have to be buying, because I still think, even now, Monarch boxes, Tales of Aria First Edition at MSRP, I think in 10 years, looking back, it's anyone watching this, and if you're watching this 10 years from now,
you going to clip it?
Leave me a comment. I think in 10 years, it'll be particularly Monarch, Tales of Aria, and even Everfest, potentially. We're still early. Like, this is still early days of Fab. So if this game is going to be around in a decade, I think those first edition products are actually worth so much more than they're being paid for.
But this is the transition period where it's all so important.
Right. And so, but point of that class of consumer buyer is they're only going to buy now if they believe that, and if they have the money to wait a decade. The 2020, 2021 collectibles market was, you could double, triple, quadruple your money in months.
Yeah.
Not in years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have $500 they can invest for 3 months. A lot less people have $500 they want to invest for a decade.
Yeah.
And so what happens though is that, okay, so if they cool down and go away, who knows how many of the boxes they were speaking for, right? Yeah. How many people were buying, like our cap for subscription is 24. How many people had 24 because it's just good value that now dropped down to 8? Because that's really what they want.
That's really what they want as players, you know, and it was just the kind of gravy on top.
We've seen a ton of that. A ton of players kind of cooling down on how many they're offering or getting through a subscription. But you have this between collectors and even players who are just buying less because it's less obvious. And that's happening. So then it was already the case with Aria that you could just get it, right, for pretty much the whole time, first edition. So then if it cools down even more, going into Everfest, it's the reality, expectation I've seen most people having is that it's going to be available on release at MSRP or lower. And we've seen this already with some websites. I've seen people really getting creative because I think what's happening is you submitted a big number. Yeah. And the other problem with the 3-tier system here is that so retailers submit numbers and you're not contractually obligated to anything. You can burn a bridge, right? Which is to say, like, I know I ordered 500 boxes.
Yeah, so you call Josh up and say, like, hey, I want 5,000. And then you call him up later. I'm only going to take 500. Sorry, Josh.
Yeah. And there's very little, and that's part of one of the biggest friction points we run into to this day is that the way our subscription system works is once we charge for a subscription, we don't go back. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is the timeline at which we're having to commit to products and services and all kinds of stuff and staff and whatnot in order to be able to fulfill these products in a timely manner. The whole process, right?
I mean, basically, it's just trust all the way up and down.
Yeah, and
so
there's very little of that
commit,
traditionally.
We commit, distributors commit, publishers commit, and making that stable.
We try to make the commitment on our customer side as late as possible. Yeah. Which usually at this point with Fab is 2 to 4 weeks before release. Usually leans towards the 4-week process, and so, but most stores and distributors, it's like, as far as I know, it's super low commitment. Even recently, one distributor for us with Pokemon, bizarrely was making a request of like,
oh man, I remember that.
Yeah, so it's essentially like, here's how many we want, and then they're like, well, because they're getting allocated, we can only get you so much of it on release. And then to give you that much, we actually want you to commit to buying the number you said. But we have no idea when we're going to be able to fulfill the rest of those.
That could be like 8 months later.
Yeah. And it's like, well, who knows? Like if some of the distributor has been getting product and retailers have been having it, I don't know if we want that product in 8 months. I can't commit to that.
Right.
Like that's not. But that said, that kind of speaks to how it normally works, which is that there's really little commitments happening, true blue commitments.
So all that's to say, Tales of Aria, then Everfest, and we're seeing Everfest and Tales of Aria following a similar pattern. It seems like first edition is going to be more widely available and not immediately scarce on demand. Oh my gosh, it's going to be super expensive, at least for now, right? Based on people's expectations going from Aria to Everfest. Now, have we reached? This is my question.
I never answered your actual question.
What is Legend Story's desire in this?
What's the ideal?
What's the ideal? Do they want a first edition to encompass 6 months of player demand, and then it's done? And there is no real first edition unlimited split. There's a print run of a set, and then if for some reason it's crazy desired, we'll do a second print run. So we have a first edition and maybe then a second edition, which is technically the unlimited. Or is the desire to keep doing a first edition unlimited print run? Because I think I got the sense that unlimited was out of necessity, not out of this is our strategy. Like even the articles framed it that way, that like, yo, like we kind of are figuring out how to now do a second run of a set because we weren't really thinking that that's something we wanted to do, at least not yet. But it seems like they kind of had the idea if it needed to be done, but not that they necessarily thought it would need to be done. Yeah. And so now we've scaled up production of first edition. Are we trying to scale it up enough where it's basically the print run of the set and that's it? I feel like if I knew that information from Legend Story, like what is your strategy for printing here, that would allow me to like better understand where I should be in terms of stocking, supplying, as a player buying, how much do I need, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think to answer your OG question you asked me up top, is it good or bad for the game? So the knock-on effect of all this is that now retailers are, if they're committed to it and they're buying a certain amount, they're going to be they don't want to sit on products for very long. Right. And then on top of that, it's like if they don't think this product is going to sell like it has been selling, they're going to start ordering less. And so then what happens is if distribution just has product on the shelf, the days of paying more than MSRP for product are probably gone. Yeah. And in fact, what we see is actually the opposite, which is the race to the bottom in terms of I'm a retailer. I know I've got 180 boxes of the set coming. I start making moves to make sure those go. Yeah. It doesn't matter what price they're going at. They need to get off my shelf. I need to get my cash back so I can buy more inventory of something else. And so what you'll start seeing is a lot of and we've seen some retailers putting them stock at map right?
And sometimes, and the thing with Everfest is we just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, this is all speculation based on kind of how Tails went.
Yeah, and so what I've seen is that when it's at map, it pretty much disappears. Like, and then when it's in the 90s, it's not quite disappearing. And that's where I've seen some creative, like, if you buy a case, we're gonna throw in a random box from a different set, right?
I hate that stuff so much.
Yeah. So the good or bad, I mean, I think it's good that players have access to product, but it's if you sour a bunch of retailers on the product, that's like the worst thing that could happen.
Retailers stop ordering, distributors stop ordering, LSS sits on giant pallets.
Retailers stop ordering, if they stop supporting the game, if players start going away, all that kind of stuff. So I think I don't know what the answer to it is. I'd love to have someone from Legend Story on the podcast
TCG
to talk
has to
about
go
it.
through this, though. Everybody's got to ramp down to
I
this.
forget what the set is, but there's some Magic set that got way overprinted.
Yeah.
For this, and it was the turning point. Where it was like, oh, like don't do this again. So for me, I think your ideal if your Legend Story, just my assumption of this would be that you have a product that retailers can sell at MSRP, and I would lean towards risking it, people having to pay MSRP or a little more to make sure that release day or release week this thing sells out.
It's exciting. It sells out.
It's this big thing. You. It's not like it's like impossible to find product, but like you have to be paying attention and going to the weekend of release kind of thing. Keeps retailers happy if players have a good access to it at a decent price. And then how you handle or not unlimited.
It doesn't seem like it needs to exist. Right? I mean, whatever the cold foil split, maybe cold foils are random. Maybe most of the time that slot is a rainbow foil, and then sometimes it can also appear as a cold foil, give it a little extra collectibility across the entire run.
I mean, I guess that's the big question, because like what you also don't want is if you think about it, unlimited should be printed more than first edition.
Yeah.
From a collectibility standpoint.
Yeah.
If first edition has less of a print run or more of a print run than unlimited, you get in this weird scenario where unlimited is actually more collectible.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, it's
which is kind of weird, right?
And if unlimited never gets printed,
well
then what happens?
That's a different story.
Then there's just not a delineation between a collectible product and a player product. There's just the product.
Yeah.
And if all the players want it, it becomes collectible.
And the balance is that if you print enough that you don't need unlimited, right? Part of the psychology here is that if you know unlimited is going to existing and it's coming,
right?
It's a different environment. But if you print enough first edition that you actually don't need unlimited, the recognition is that if distributors can just have it on their shelves, inevitably there's too many people on the internet have the stores that can just buy the same exact products. The price of that product is going to be map.
Yeah. And sometimes lower. Like, because they just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, shut me down, whatever.
It's also like, it's just very difficult to police.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of work to police that. But if you're okay with a map product, and inevitably what it means is that retailers have some on the shelves that aren't moving, so they put it at the price that's the lowest to try to move it, because, they just need to get the cash back out. And that's where, to me, it's like, for the reality of like retailers comparing this to other products they could be spending energy buying and selling, having a product that immediately pretty much sells out and has that kind of market rate. How you achieve that, I don't know.
But like, there's not a lot of options for that right now. Like, it's not like there's a 20 SKUs you can buy instead that are just going to immediately sell out.
Yeah.
Like Magic isn't going to immediately sell out necessarily. Yeah. That's not, it's not like you can pivot into other things.
But I do think like from if you're buying product and it's just sitting there, like I think about all the board games you could be, there's a turn to it, right? And you sell it and you buy the next thing and it's this like thing happening. But eventually, like if you just keep buying new sets and you sell a decent amount, but then it's just the end of your supply sits there and then it sits there and then it sits there. It's less appealing.
Well, you'll just buy less, right? Or none, and then eventually maybe none. Yeah, but it's like that's the dance that every retail and every TCG has ever had to do. And the crazy thing here is that we're on set 6 now, and just now hitting kind of that streamlined, standardized, okay, we're seeing the correction happen. I think this is a really important moment for the game. Luckily, the game is phenomenal to play.
Yeah.
So as long as there's enough people that believe that and want to play it, and that we've got $1 million Pro Tour and stuff going on, I think that we had this weird kind of like, break from everything that was exciting about Flesh and Blood, kind of had the off season, and it's about to ramp back up, and Everfest could be a baller set. And here's the question that really I have is Tales of Aria, we can talk about number crunching and perception of simply supply and demand absent the content of those cards. But are we also looking at the fact that this is a set that didn't have generics in it, that had 3 heroes that maybe you weren't at all interested in? If you didn't care about the elemental thing, why would you as a player care about buying it? And then it had a sealed format that was very heavily slanted towards Briar and a very good draft format. So like, can we also look at the set itself and say, wait a minute, if you release a big set that very few heroes can actually benefit from, you might expect demand's going to be less.
Yeah.
Like that's a fair thing, right? So as an example, Plunder Run gets banned. So I'm looking at it in Bolton, and here are my options in Bolton. I can run Seek Enlightenment, +3, card goes into the soul, costs 1. I can run a generic Nimblism, 0 for 3, no effect. I can run Come to Fight, 1 for 3 with 3 defense. I can run Razor Reflex, 1 for 3 reaction speed. Saves me a soul. All of those are generic cards.
Yeah.
Like if generics were pulled out of the card pool, my choice would be Seek Enlightenment or Seek Enlightenment or Seek Enlightenment in that slot.
What about Seek Enlightenment?
Yeah. Have you considered? So my point there is like so much of the interesting decision points during deck building in this game currently revolve around a giant suite of generic cards that can be utilized for various heroes in different ways. Now, obviously, Briar was able to utilize any card that had an attack with Go Again on it. That's too wide of a net for a hero ability to be good with. But if you look at somebody like Dory getting Nourishing Emptiness, hey, that changed things.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. If you look at...
Even Kano players were playing that.
Yeah. Bravo. What did Bravo get? The Go Again attack?
Rouse the Ancients.
Rouse the Ancients.
And Zealous Belting. Yeah. And technically Outmuscle.
Those are all generics from Monarch. So if you take that away from a card pool with a set like Tales of Aria, I think it's natural to expect that the deck building options being non-existent for most heroes, why would you want more of that set?
Yeah. Now I have seen there's a hidden upside to that too, right? Yeah. Which is two things are worth noting. There are seemingly, like coming out of the organized play season of last year, the player growth was astounding in last year.
Yeah. Like
there's a ton of people playing. That's why Unlimited kept selling out. And like,
I mean, think about going to Vegas. Yeah. That was crazy.
So that's a positive sign. The other thing is I know a ton of players getting in the Monarch and or Tales of Aria phase. And like at the Orlando event we went to, tons of people were saying that, the Tales is when they got in. They were also playing one of those 3 heroes. And they could basically buy this set and supplement with some singles and get to a reasonable set of decks, right?
Yeah.
And so when you have a set so tightly focused, it's also an easier entry point for people to get in, potentially. But I don't think you're wrong. I think that when you remove the generics and the generic, like even just the fact that there's so much talented stuff, like whatever you call class generics, basic.
Yeah, we're going away. We have a name for the basic. Okay. Generic, basic, and then class, generic.
So
how it goes.
You have the basic cards as well that are basically removed. And so you look at like Viscera for Runeblade. It's like, there's maybe like Rosetta Thorn. Check. It's the common thing. The Creepers. So I need this like 1 card.
But that was one of the classes in Aria.
Yeah, but
that's
like
important,
even for Viscera, it's like there's like 1 card I need.
Yeah.
So if you're not interested in the new heroes, then that's a fine balance you've got to keep on.
Right?
Or you just have to expect less demand for the set. So I think, like in retrospect, even in Everfest, so this is what I'm curious about. Because you have to print Tales when things are still literally on fire.
Yeah.
Right?
in a good way, yeah.
Going into Monarch, you have $500 pre-orders for Monarch, and it sells out on release, and people are paying $300, $400, $500 a box day one. By then, you've already hit print on Tales of Aria. So in my mind, I would put some money on, and I assume, like last time, they released the print run data after Crucible came out. So I won't be shocked if they release the print run data on these 3 sets after Everfest comes out, like the block. I would be very surprised if I have no inside knowledge, just so we're clear, if Monarch and Tales of Aria were print runs similarly sized.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time Tales came out, the investor / collector group had by that set release, Monarch first edition boxes went from like $500 a box on release down to like $200.
Mm-hmm.
So going into Tales, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is...
So a big some portion that was being bought in that space is now free for others.
Yep. And also...
And there's not enough others.
Tales hits, and players recognize that the value went down. So you see pre-orders for like 180 a box or 170 a box. And they just wait. And you buy the stuff when it comes out. You got to... And then because it's so focused, let's say you like one of the heroes. It's really easy at that point to buy 3 or 4 boxes and trade into whatever it was you wanted out of that set. So then going back to Crucible or whatever. Anyways, so all that to say, I wouldn't be shocked if they're similarly sized, but I'm really curious how much Everfest gets printed.
Here, let me ask you guys a question.
I got a splinter too. This is just like
a splinter.
Weird. Yeah.
Just in the air, like wood shards.
I don't know, dude.
How many of you watching bought less Tales of Aria because there were not any or enough cards that you really needed from the set? I would be very curious. If you compare it to Monarch to Tales, did you buy less, and if so, why?
Well, and I'm curious. That's exactly what I was gonna say, because it could also be it's the value game. There's a ton of reasons that you would buy less going into that.
And I think Monarch Sealed was probably the best sealed that I've seen in Flesh and Blood. I think Monarch Sealed was excellent. I think it was better than Tales. Monarch Sealed, I would almost say, is unequivocally better than Tales Sealed.
I think Tales Draft was better.
Tales Draft better. Yeah, but Drafts is harder to do, and it's harder to pull off, and
it's less expensive.
It is less expensive. That's true.
Especially when the packs are half price.
Yeah, so I'm really curious, because to me, Tales was probably the least exciting set in retrospect. When I really take it in, it didn't Monarch introduced talents. That was exciting, and it's like, how is this going to work? What's going to go on here? Crucible had so many incredibly important and class-defining cards. It really switched up all the options for a lot of existing heroes. Welcome to Wraith is the premier learn how to play Flesh and Blood set. Introduced the concept, super exciting, new game. Arcane Rising introduced wizards and arcane damage and a new way to do damage to people. Wonderfully exciting. Also gave a lot of tools to existing classes. So if you think about the strength of all of those sets, and then you get to Tales of Aria, extremely siloed, one talent with 3 aspects to it, only 3 heroes introduced, and the set only supports those 3 heroes pretty much.
And there's a large crowd that was exhausted by Chain.
Yeah,
and frustrated.
Here we go, Runeblade. Yeah. So if you look at all those things, I think that's as much of a contributor as any kind of tangible, technical nuts and bolts of supply and demand and all of that. It's like demand was lower because you just didn't need as much or want as much of the set. It just wasn't as good of a set.
You get a lot of commentary here.
Oh, okay. Let's talk.
There's tons of commentary.
Okay, let's look. I think AJ started us off. Wow, you guys are destroying here.
Yeah.
Kingmaker bought more Aria for limited. Zen Trickster bought 0 Tales because there's nothing for me in the heroes I play. So there's 1-0. AJ, same amount due to hype, but I should have probably cut it. Ended up with a lot that I didn't need. Brian said I bought less Tales of Aria because it was fewer cards in the set than Monarch and it didn't take as much to get everything. Breezy bought less Tales of Aria because it's too hyper-focused of a set. Great draft, but otherwise not multidimensional enough. Business Guy got into the game with Tales, so bought more Tales than anything, presumably. Brad Hayes, I bought 1 box. Overall, Aria was not as interesting to me. I bought 7 boxes of Monarch. Frisbees didn't buy it at all because they like ninjas. Lucas says it was my entry set, so I bought a ton of it. Also, it was nice. The price was lower than expected as an entry point. So you see this split between existing players didn't buy as much, and then new players.
That's kind of what I was saying earlier, right? Like any new set that is that focused is a decent place to start.
Yeah,
because you buy 3 or 4 boxes, and you're going to have decks for every hero.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's so contained, right? But that does lower overall demand, and if you print to the same level of expected demand, right? It is interesting.
You're trying to find the balance between existing players wanting less and new players needing more. That's really... Mark Lennon bought less, had no interest in collecting Aria heroes, so no reason to buy more and nothing to chase. Oni in Zero said, I bought about half as much Tails as Monarch and 3 times what I did for Monarch on Everfest because there was nothing for my Prism deck. I went the singles route there.
Yeah.
Sleeping Gloom bought more Tails than Monarch, but it was more available.
Huh?
I really like the hero pool for Tails, which also got me to buy more. Peter Stalker bought the same. Tom Philippi, I bought less for the exact reasons Zach illustrated. David Cornwell bought less Tails because it didn't supplement any of the 4 heroes I play. Gunther Fett sounds like bought a case, as is the case for everything. Michael Daly bought less of Tails, but only 1 box. Realized aside from Legendaries, there was nothing I really wanted.
Crazy.
Wyatt, I was hyped for Oldham, but after I built that deck, early Aria was a snooze. Gruder bought less TOA. Like, that's what I'm saying.
But here's the sleeper stat. Oh, that's true, right?
Yeah.
Is that we're going into Everfest.
Yeah.
And from what they've said, every class is getting cards for like the whole boat, right?
Yeah.
So there's technically 9 classes currently. And we'll see. I'm curious. Are we going to get more talent cards, or is it going to be all basic class cards?
I just
or is it
gotta
going to be
know.
generics?
Is every set moving forward not going to have generics in it?
So here's my
Is that the idea?
reality with this, though, is that if Everfest, I think it was either printed similarly or less than the previous 2 sets.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Monarch is its own thing. Hype train leading into that thing was crazy.
Yeah.
Tails is...
And Monarch was a great set.
Sure.
Also. Quality was high.
Introduction of talents,
Yeah.
right?
And all the heroes were interesting.
But, and we get Illusionist, a new class for the first time.
Class, and you get generic something on all the old
So,
heroes.
going into this Everfest set, though, I think we have more players playing Flesh and Blood than ever. I think we're heading into a massive organized play year, but particularly starting with the ProQuest season at the local store. I think you have a set that is going to have, like Crucible. You needed more boxes of Crucible on average to get a play set than you did the previous 2 sets.
They're going to bring in all the fancy equipment.
I think that's going to be the same thing for this. And then you're going to have the cold foil, like, equipment Majestics. So, like, you know, Skeletor is not a legendary, but it kind of feels like a legendary, especially in the Crucible rarity paradigm. And so I think I'm so excited to see how this plays out, and I'm excited about the set. But I think the perception that this thing is just going to be available might be true. Could also just be flatly wrong.
It could be that everyone here that said less Tails buys the same amount of Everfest as they did Monarch or Crucible.
Yep.
And then we're back to the freaking constraint. Yeah. Everything's tight. Everything explodes.
Yeah, and I'm curious, I have no idea, but like given what we saw with Tails, do you hit print on Unlimited Everfest? Mm-hmm. And if the answer to that ends up being no, because we've seen there's a
did Crucible Unlimited happen?
Yeah.
It did, okay. Yep. It was the first Unlimited, wasn't it? Wasn't it weird? Like it was?
No, it wasn't. So they didn't do Unlimited we didn't know Unlimited was coming. So Crucible prices were through the roof.
Yeah.
Because there were all those majestic equipment, like Courage of Blade Hold, that was just like...
Yeah, you have to, you know, gotta have this.
So if they print... if you're looking at Tails as an example, and the question being, do you print Unlimited of Everfest at that point? But we've seen a few times where Legend Story makes an announcement that kind of like the week, I think, or the week before Crucible came out is when they were like, Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising are out of print. You can't get them.
Yeah.
And then things went crazy, right? Same thing was true when the print run data came out. That hit and the first edition prices of the first 3 sets went crazy because it was now here's exactly how many boxes of first edition Welcome to Wraith there were.
So then it's just a numbers game for some folks.
Yeah. So if Everfest comes out, I'm really interested to hear from them on Unlimited or not and what the future of Unlimited looks like. And somewhere someone talked to James apparently, and there was like a offhand comment about like looking at it, not exactly like what's happening is not how they ideal essentially. That's all hearsay. But if this set comes out and then let's say they announce we're not doing Unlimited for this set. And let's say they also announce the print run data. And let's say Everfest is 70% of the past 2 sets. I think there's a lot of things there that could hit that all of a sudden, this very moment, looking back in 60 days or whatever, is radically different. There's been a handful of announcements like that where they announced the Arcane Rising Unlimited going out of print. And it was like we had them in stock on the site and they just disappeared.
Yeah, they evaporated.
Because all of a sudden. So On top of that, you're going to be going into OP season, and you're going to have the spoiler season hitting. And I do think this is going to be a really good set that really rounds out all these cards and heroes and stuff.
Yeah, that's the perspective that I continue to bring is like, well, if it's a great set, that's where you start. Yeah. Right? If the cards in the set are interesting and they provide class diversity, different ways of playing the same heroes, if they kind of solve the problem that lack of generics created entails, like, you can have one piece of equipment in this game that fundamentally shifts the identity of a hero in two distinct directions. And there is
or like weapons.
There's no game that I've played that does that. So when I think about a spoils set comes out, this is one of the strengths of generically, you put a deck together from whatever you want. You choose a faction and you put it together. There's always new cards for your faction in every set. Oh my gosh, it's really exciting. I always get to go and sort through what I'm going to do. Tales didn't give us that. But spoils, it's like, okay, I can put this card in my deck, and when I draw it, I get a new effect and impact. But Flesh and Blood, I start the game with this stuff in place. So if I have these two equipments that have synergistic abilities that suddenly Warrior can do a crazy new thing, if they have these two in lieu of the armor that they were running previously, you can build 17 variations of a class with maybe 17 cards.
Yeah.
Which is, Zach, that blows my mind. Like, to be able to utilize that mechanic in a way that would, like, look at New Horizon with Ranger. Like, that fundamentally can shift the way that something goes. So I hope that Everfest gives us kind of back to basics looks at fundamentally updating, changing, giving interesting, deck building positions or choices for players of any and every hero to start exploring different kinds of builds.
Yeah, and inevitably, if that is true, it'll mean the meta will shift. The bans in Errata, which we'll come back around to in a second, the meta will shift, which means that, and as these card pools expand, that's the generics is another conversation we need to come back to, which is, if you imagine putting out the first set, generics are obviously super helpful because your card pool is very small.
Yeah.
The first couple of years,
and
right?
Listen, I don't need a class or a talent version of Nimblism for all 8 talents, right?
There's basic
it's a 0 for 3 bump.
You're kind of just wanting to give to everybody, right?
Yeah.
But even in this set, right? Let's say there's 200 cards and there's 9 classes. So even without generics, each class gets another 20 cards. Ish, and maybe they're multiple colors, so maybe each class getting, but like 10 to 12 extra cards right now per class is a ton.
Yeah, that would be a tremendous
when I'm
amount.
looking at the binder, like Runeblade even, there's not that many cards.
Yeah,
actually. So we're still in, one thing that has consistently been true of Legend Story is that they have clearly thought things out from a macro perspective.
I'll challenge you on that with Briar.
Well, I'm not saying testing. I'm saying macro, like not
how
revealing
we want
talents,
it to go.
Right? Or that kind of stuff, right? Just how they're layering stuff out from that big picture, and they're thinking about those things. And so you look at the card pool and whatnot, and it's like I do think that the need for more generics potentially goes down over time. But to your point, generics make sure that a set is interesting for every player, regardless of what they're choosing to play, and just give you cards that you can put in a lot of different places.
I think it also makes the limited more interesting.
Sure.
I mean, like when you think about a sealed pool for Monarch, I was talking about this in Discord, I might have a generic suite of 6+ attacks that send me to Brute, but I might have a Brute class pool that's mediocre.
Yeah.
And then I've got a little Minnowism package. Oh, that's interesting. I can put that in these 2 heroes, and let's see what those class pools look like. In Tales of Aria, it's like, is it Briar? Yes, no. And then what are what's my second best pool?
Yeah. I mean, the tension they're wanting to create there, obviously, is that there's a shared talent. So all of those cards technically act as generics. Ish, because they work for 2 out of 3 heroes. But interestingly, even the cards within the elements, most of them are either good for character A or B. Right? It's not
like Heaven's Claws versus Ball Lightning, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Now, Ball Lightning technically great in both Briar, and that's one of the exceptions. But like
way better than Briar.
The entire Earth package. It's like the cards I want for Oldhim are not the same cards I want for Briar. Right.
Yeah.
Briar wants Weaver. She wants Earthward Surge. She wants that. He wants the blues.
Yeah.
Right? She wants the reds. She doesn't even care about blues.
It's true.
Lexi, kind of the same thing. So anyways, it's like I can see the kernels of the ideas that want to be there. And, I do think that especially Sealed was slanted Briar. It just was.
Now, the other thing you can do here, and I see, tell me this.
I'll be right back. Hold on.
Dante's saying, I agree. When building CC decks, there's not much room deck building differences because the card pool is so limited per class. Yeah, so here's the question with that, right? So is the answer, you have two answers. One of them is good now, but worse later. And one of them is the opposite of that. Worse now, but probably better in the long term if you can get there. Like one strategy is, okay, let's just keep printing generics so that there's enough, kind of usable cards in every set for every hero. But eventually, there's two risks there. One, at a certain point, when do you reach your limit of interesting effects and interactions that you want everyone to have access to? Like there is a natural ceiling to when the game starts feeling the same. And that's where the second problem is, which is like, you don't want to get to a point where everybody's just running the same cards with like 4 or 5 class cards difference. Or, like you get to a point where everyone's running Enlightened Strike, Art of War, Ravenous Rabble, Scar for a Scar, etc. And then class identity gets super muddled and super non-interesting, and talent identity gets even worse because those talent cards just aren't bringing as much force to your deck as the generics are. The other way you can take this thing though is you need a massive injection of talent and or class cards, and I think you could just do it with talents. Aside from the fact that your problem right now is all of your generic heroes that you started with your first 3 sets can't use any of the talent cards that you now need to get out to those talented heroes. So there are solutions to that, but it could be that rather than printing generics, you take these pies, these slices of the 8 talents, let's say, that they're going to do, and you start, what you would print as generics, you start pushing those into these different talent trees. But you need to do that quickly, because if you're going to flesh out your talents in where like there's meaningful decisions to be made for any hero within that talent, can bring in any number of these different tools to make their class identity different or diverse, you're going to need to print a lot of talent cards. And you don't maybe have 5 to 6 sets to flesh all of that out. Because if you get a Tales of Aria situation for Everfest and the set after, and I'm sitting here on my Ninja deck or my Azalea deck or my Bravo deck, and I'm saying, I only need 2 cards here, I need 1 card here, I need 1 card here, you're playing an extremely large LCG at that point. That comes out 3 times, which is even worse than the 12 times a year that the LCGs were hitting. Which was well brought up on our Discord, that the LCG problem that Chaos Theory was bringing up. Like, the problem with LCG is you have a month non-collectible game. You have a month every where a pack's coming out. You might get 1 card a month. So it's like, okay, I upgrade my Targaryen deck with 1 card. Next pack comes out. I don't want that for my theme. I'm playing Dothraki, not dragons. Next pack comes out. 2 Targaryen cards. I don't want to run those either. And eventually it's just so boring because you're never changing your deck. So there's so many, you've siloed the system out to talent class, which has so much upside and potential if you do it really well. But at this point, you need a big injection of talent cards if you're going to stop relying on generic cards to fill in those gaps. So what does that look like, right? Like, is the set after Everfest no new classes, no class cards, and it's just elemental, light, shadow, talents. And it's just, boom, a shotgun blast of 200 talent cards that come in and fill in those gaps. Basically talking about, Zach, like, you can potentially replace your reliance on generics by buffing up a ton of talent cards. Like, print 80 more light cards, 80 more shadow cards, 80 more elemental cards over the next set. And then, at least for those talent pools, you have as meaningful decisions as you would have with the generics, and it kind of starts solving that problem. But then, how much time until it doesn't help Katsu, right? It doesn't help Azalea. So you're stuck with these generic heroes and then these talented heroes, and it's like you need to build up generic cards for this suite and talent cards for this suite. I mean, that's very difficult unless you release talented versions of the original generic heroes.
Yeah, and you also need to have keep in mind sealed and draft, right?
Yeah.
Because
go
back to that article where James was saying that's actually where they're designing first.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, there's an element to me of there's an element of effectively, if if you are going to do a lot of big events in sealed and draft as a format, we see that it's part of the national championships. We've seen that in a lot of the big events.
And it's a phenomenal format. My favorite.
Easily.
By far.
But it's also it's the lowest barrier of entry format. You need the least amount of collection. It's also the worst format for moving product. Like technically, unless you have a ton of it going on, right? But you don't need to buy boxes to find the right cards and build your constructed decks. And so there's a balance there, but the recognizing how you need to achieve, there's a lot of goals here. Great sealed experiences consistently and draft. And also, I think you get 6 years down the road. Every class, there's enough generics, enough basic class cards, enough talent cards. Because I've said for a while, like, if you're going to do, people asking, like, when we're going to get more wizards, as an example, which I know you love.
Well, Kano is a special.
Yeah.
If there's wizards that play normal fab, bring it on.
Have you seen Icelander?
Yeah. It looks very promising.
The thing I like about that is the still messing with the I do stuff on your turn as an instant speed, but it's very limited once probably from Arsenal, and then mixing with the ice ability to like give you a frostbite and slow you down, right, which is cool. But like the envisioning for me of if Kano's the craziest wizard because he can just as long as he's got resources he can keep doing stuff.
Yeah.
Then that's fine by me.
Sure.
Like realistically, like if that's the border, like they just set up, it's kind of like Levia on the Gore. It's like if this is the most extreme, let's go ahead and make people that wouldn't be comfortable with that know about this early, so that anything we do is in bounds after this.
It feels like wizards have instant speed as their class identity.
Yeah, it's like the bulk of their damage is arcane damage, and then they also have instant speed tricks.
Yeah, which is how you make things feel like spells, right? It's like, I got cast.
Yeah, so there's like attacks on your equipment if you want arcane barrier and all this kind of stuff. But the goals of what I was going to say is like, I also envision if you're going to do wizard in a set, and you're going to have arcane damage as a primary thing, then arcane barrier is probably also got to be in that set. So what you probably don't do is kind of like we've seen with Runeblade and every other class, is string wizard along across multiple sets to introduce the elemental wizard or the shadow wizard or the light wizard, because you now have to have set after set where you're just introducing arcane barrier equipment and that kind of stuff. So all this long-winded story to say, the idea of a set that is either multiple wizards or all wizards, where we've seen one where they all share the talent, but you could also technically have a set they all share the class, right? 4 warriors as a basic example, but you have a light warrior, a shadow warrior, an elemental warrior, and a whatever warrior, so that you're also giving cards to previously talented heroes. And so there's fun ways to do it. But in the end, say 7 years from now, I think the idea without rotation and stuff is that you've got all these classes that have a wide range of cards they can use in the talent, in the class, and generically.
How exciting does that sound? Yeah. Right. If you came to me and said, "Hey, Steven, there's this collectible game I want you to get involved. It's been around for a long time. It's one of the most fundamentally well-designed card games that has ever existed. Has a long, adoring and still growing player base and a very strong organized play circuit. It's kind of the underground success of the industry. And you can pick whatever class you want to play." And then you can take that class in 8 different directions based on the talent that you want to pair with it. Okay. And then after that, you can still move within that based on the talent card you're choosing and the generic card you're choosing.
And the equipment you're choosing, the weapon you're choosing.
I would lose my mind. Yeah. And then it was like, and there's 8 different weapons that you can choose from too. It's like the idea of going into the armory and just having a lot of options there. That's the hope of the game, is like, if you get to that point, it's going to be so magical. Yeah. And the question is like, can you get there? And how do you fill in the gaps in a meaningful way for players along the way? Yeah. Before you have that fully realized.
And I was talking on the Discord channel the other day about this, because there's a lot of players did that. They picked the 1 or 2 classes they want to play and they're focused in on it. And I saw a comment just now about how they have the 2 decks for the 2 heroes they like to play, and like they're kind of at a weird spot because when sets don't have stuff for that hero, not that interesting. And then it also means their decks aren't changing that often. Yeah, which can get
LCG
boring,
problem,
right? It is just like the LCG problem. But that my kind of point was, I think the dream state for Legend Story is that half roughly of your organized play and your events and whatnot are sealed in draft. And that regardless of what heroes you're choosing to actually collect and play, that sealed and draft is enjoyable for anyone that enjoys the game. and that allows you to be somewhat interested no matter what's going on. Of course, then you can trade away or sell anything you get that you don't care about. And then you know, there's real issues with that idea of a model, though, because in the long run, 7 years deep, it's great to think about this, but then also how do you actually make it so that someone that's just not getting into the game can actually get all the warrior pieces they need with all these sets that don't rotate that you've strung along, right? Like
pre-constructed in CC decks. Let's start there.
Yeah, that's a good
Put
start.
those out already,
I think-
right? Like
I think-
Blitz is just. Can we be done with Blitz already?
I think the answer to unlimited is like highlight sets. So you don't need to do every set in unlimited, but I think you need to pay attention to what cards on the singles market are getting too expensive, and then occasionally print a set that's just got all of those cards.
Did that? You know, this whole idea, this magic won't print again list or whatever that list is. You know
the Holy
about that?
Grail. Yeah.
Is that in response to this idea that you're talking about, that they were just printing the cards that were previously valuable again, and then investors and players are like, oh, we hate this?
So I think
I can see that.
the concern was it was less that they had been doing it and more that people weren't sure if they were going to do it.
Okay.
It's like Black Lotus and the Power 9 or something.
Sure, yeah.
But I think the common sentiment now is that promising that ever was a mistake.
Oh, okay.
When you're going to have a legacy format and this kind of stuff.
Well, and just print, you know, it can be the same ability. Give me different art. Give me a new take on it or a new spin or something like that.
Well, particularly in Fab when you're not going to rotate. The format is always going to have every card be playable until it gets banned or errated if it needs it. And from a collectibility standpoint, knowing that Grasp of the Arknight, which they've already told us that they'll reprint cards with the same art, just not gold foil. Arcanite Skullcap's coming in Everfest.
Yeah.
So very quickly, from a player perspective, Arcanite Skullcap should go down in value.
Right.
There's going to be way more out there, just like they did with Tunic in Crucible, right? They reprinted
I wish it was different art. I wish the Krunic was different art too.
I agree.
So much.
But to me, it's if it were the world of Fab according to Zach, I think that the highlight sets, like Star Wars TCG did this with the reflection sets, where they just went and picked and they did alt arts of some of them and they did foil of some of them that weren't foil previously, and they did fun stuff and they included Japanese versions of the cards but they just had these sets that were if you're a new player, it's a great thing to just buy because it's going to get you cards from across like 10 different sets or whatever. So, how they handle all these problems is territory we haven't been into, but I
We're
assume
trying to
it's
get James on a podcast.
things they've been had in the back of their mind from the beginning, right? Because you can logically run this through.
Aria was confusing for me.
No generics?
It was confusing how that all went. Yeah. It's like I was there in Vegas for the premiere and stuff, so it was super exciting and fun, and like the format was great. But in retrospect, it's like, yeah, actually that's a pretty divergent set from what the expectation was from 1 to 4. And I'd be curious.
The magic thing is called the reserve list, by the way.
Yes, the reserve list, that's right. I'd be curious. So, but ultimately the fundamental reality too is that limited is great and can be a great standalone experience, but the reality is the success of this entire ecosystem is I play sealed, I play draft, and I get those cards and implement them into a constructed landscape that I also want to be a part of.
Yeah, and you buy product.
Focus on the fundamentals there. So if it's Aria and the first part of that chain can happen, but the second part can't, you're going to see problematic sales, I think.
Yeah, well, and it was compounded by a lot of things, right? The collector thing we were talking about earlier, it's compounded by a meta dominated by chain that people are getting frustrated at, compounded by the Runeblade happening again, so you're not serving another class, and compounded by the fact that Runeblade yet again was a problem.
And you didn't even give Shadow or Light Talent cards.
Yep, and compounded by the fact that you had to have bannings before the set even came out.
Oh, right, Dustblade and stuff, yeah. And now after the set has come out.
And, yeah, so...
Let's talk about the bans. I got to run to the bathroom real quick. Let's talk about the bans. See what the people think, man. Like
about in general or the bans? I'll just keep talking.
About the bans, because I've got some real thoughts on that.
So, if you're unfamiliar, they banned Plunder Run and from Classic Constructed and Ball Lightning, and they errated Briar. Previously, every time an attack did damage, she got an Embodiment of Earth token, and now she only gets an Embodiment of Earth the first time in a round that an attack does damage. which all that combined, particularly the Lightning deck that won nationals in the U.S. and was winning a lot of national championships all over, got hit with this effect. Rosetta Thorn didn't get touched. Brier's ability, of course, affects all Briar decks, but then Plunder Run usually was a 9-of in the Lightning Briar decks, and Ball Lightning was commonly a 3 or 6-of. I'm curious what everyone thinks about the ban in Errata. We'll be talking into that when Steven gets back, but I think the one that was most surprising for me was Plunder Run. I notoriously early and often had Plunder Run in my deck to Steven's chagrin. And it, as a Runeblade player, it fits into a lot of decks just because it's a 9-attack action with Go Again. So you start the chain, you play a different card, it creates a rune chant, plus you get the effect. Just a really good card for Runeblade in general. And then it got, I think, even better out of Briar because it gets you halfway to an embodiment of Lightning Token. Dante is saying the worst kind of changes you can make to a game are erratas because they are inherently confusing. I definitely think erratas can be confusing, but at the same time, with the minimal functional change ultimately to Briar, and on a hero that starts in play, a hero is probably the only place you can really get away without too much confusion in a game like Flesh and Blood. So you said you have thoughts.
I have a lot of thoughts. I'm gonna get this mint down.
Well, here I'll give you my pre-thoughts. Before the ban in Errata, I played a lot of testing in this meta, and Briar's very good, ahead of the curve for sure. But I didn't think it was an unwinnable match, and I've seen a lot of metas where if the meta is willing to just adapt and like make it where it's tough to win events with her, people will slowly drift away to other things, and then the meta will kind of balance itself out because it's not just 80% Briar kind of a thing or 60%. But at the same time, like I'm not. It's kind of like when they did Seeds of Agony to hit chain. I think with the changes in place, macro level view, Briar is still a viable hero, fun to play, and still good. She's just not like oppressively good all the time. Not that she was unbeatable before, but it did take very particular heroes to stop her. I think a lot of heroes just didn't have a fighting chance. And that's pretty annoying if you pick the 2 you want to play and then your class just can't beat the main deck. Like that's a bad position to get into. So I've never been opposed to, like even back in the Game of Thrones days, a pretty heavy-handed ban restricted list reality, just because you're releasing all these cards, players are playing thousands and thousands of games. You're going to miss stuff. There's just no way to develop perfectly unless you have like that 100-person team. Even then, you might still miss stuff. So I like the living legend status that allows heroes to rotate out that are above the curve, so to speak, over time. And even just over time at this point, I think most heroes will rotate out unless they're just well under the curve, which they could be. You know, some heroes won't point at any rangers. But I would rather, the thing I really like about all this stuff happening, before we get into the specifics, I like that Legend Story is proactive. I like they're communicating about it. I like they're being honest about it. Doesn't mean they didn't make any mistakes, but that is not something that I have had a lot of experience with from the publishers of games that I've played over my life. A lot of times, like Destiny had a 6-9 month period with busted decks that didn't get touched.
And a lot of games actually do that. I feel like isn't Yu-Gi-Oh really known for like crazy stuff gets busted and banned and busted and banned and it's just constant?
Destiny was busted and not touched.
That's
the worst thing that you can do. Best thing is you don't have to ban anything because everything's great. But I would rather them be proactively trying to solve the problem than continuing to allow a meta that's going to keep frustrating people. I'm a Runeblade player. I wasn't frustrated.
I think so. There's probably a couple of questions actually that come up anytime. I've seen a couple of commentaries on ban and errata and what has happened. And like there's a number of different things at play there. One is, do you agree that it was busted? Do you agree that it was problematic enough to step in and do something about it? People can agree or disagree on that. And people will land on different zones there. And how much, even if it's beatable, do you really want it to be like this kind of thing where it's like chain? Like, you know, when I was practicing the Azalea matchup in Vegas, for Vegas, it's all of my intention is can I beat Chain, and I can maybe get there 30% of the time. Playing an average Chain player.
Yeah.
And so, like, I can win the matchup, but everything has to go my way kind of thing. And do you want your game to have matchups like that? Which I don't know how you can get around that. If you're going to have a diversity of classes and talents, they can't all be 100% 50-50 against each other.
Yeah.
That's unreasonable.
But I think having 2 or 3 heroes that are at least 50-50 against any given hero, right? Like, that's when it becomes problematic when there's like 2 heroes that can approach 50%.
Yeah.
Right? Or let's say there's 3 heroes that can.
True.
But
they have to be answered, basically. They're so strong that they don't care what the opposing hero is. They're doing the same thing no matter what.
And I like having every hero is likely to have matches that they're more than 50-50 on and less than 50-50 on. And it's just a matter of that being blended, right?
But the weird thing to me is, like, we've seen this twice now. So the big event happens in the US, and Chain gets beat by Prism, and then Chain gets hit. So Chain did not win and then gets hit.
Yeah.
Briar does not win and gets hit. And it's like...
Well, Briar was winning a lot of events.
Yeah, but, like, didn't win lost to Oldhim in the biggest one there at...
Well, at the call-in, but won the national championship.
Yeah, well, different.
I think
different folks.
The thing with Chain and Briar created the same problem, which is that it's the number of people playing those decks. And particularly, and I think this is the better question to be asking about the bans and erratas, and this is the only question that really matters, is the game, the meta, the balance of things, healthier or less healthy after the bannings? Because like the Chain, even example, he showed up in the top 8 again.
Right.
It's just that he was like 2% of the population of decks. Still very playable, but not just so obviously playable. And so the Briar problem with the Lightning version is that it was the Chain problem. It's so much faster and inevitable than any other deck that's trying to play aggro. If you're going to play aggro, this is the aggro deck. And then, so what that does is Katsu disappears.
Right.
And not because Katsu
just can't be faster.
Bad, but he's just like playing a slower version of Briar who doesn't get the defensive boon of doing the damage. And so it's like, well, what am I doing? So if you can bring Briar down, and that was what they were trying to do with the Chain too, bring it down a touch, the goal would be that, well, now there's like 6 different aggro decks floating around that are different with different strengths and different weaknesses.
Yeah, that's the ideal, right?
Because I think you can go the other direction too, right? If you bring all the aggro decks down far enough, I've been in metas that are control heavy. That's far worse to me.
Yeah, like, I think Oldhim is there now, right? Like, I'm so bored by Oldhim that I can't even test it. But like, I think that a dedicated, really like down the line Oldhim player probably is going to win a vast majority of matches.
It can be brutal. I was testing a match the other day as Oldhim, and my opponent was like, I don't want you to ever attack. Like, don't give me the chance to filter my hand.
Yeah.
Just make me play out my hand. And it was actually pretty wild.
Like, you just didn't take any damage.
You just for a long time.
Right. Yeah. This is my concern, dude.
Between the shield and the arcane barrier and the ice reaction and like just the way he's working.
Yeah.
And then the question is, can you actually do 40 damage through me explicitly just trying to stop you from doing 40 damage? It's the opposite question of, it's cool that we can ask this. I remember against Chain, it was like, can I do 50 damage in the first 5 turns?
Yeah.
That's the benchmark.
You must be able to.
I have to get to the point where you must block me by the time you're getting to Shackle 5 and be making you block me. Otherwise, you're going to run over. Yeah, I'm just going to get...
Sometimes you can block with 3 from hand and still run somebody over.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Chain problem.
Yeah.
But Oldhim is the opposite, which is if all he does is not take damage, and let's say he has cards in his deck that gain life. Because
Guardian.
Can you actually do enough damage in time?
Yeah.
Or does he run you? That's fatigue,
and I
right?
couldn't do that. Ranger could not do that against Bravo.
And against Oldhim, it would be
even worse.
Unbelievable. Right? Yeah. But the point is, I would rather live in a world where every deck is being asked the question, can you stop me from doing enough damage, or can I do more than 50 damage in the first 5 turns? Then the question, can I do enough damage if all you ever do is block?
Yeah.
Because it's the reactive versus the proactive meta, in my opinion. I would rather it be at least both of us are actually attacking each other and choosing not to defend, then one of us is not attacking and only ever defending.
Or we're both just not really attacking.
Well, that's even worse.
And it's just like, I've been
it's like
in those
all those
metas
games
too.
go to time, and it's just like, why? What are we doing
Yeah.
here? And
But-
that, that's where I said healthy meta earlier, and it's worth defining what that even looks like. People have very different opinions on what it means for the game to be healthy.
Yeah, and so the balance question is there for sure, and then there's the process question of like, you're about to go in an off season where there's not any competitive events. You're about to release a new set. Why ban now? Whenever you have Everfest that could fundamentally change the strength of Briar?
I mean, that's a great question. I think the answer is
They know what's coming out.
you're about to hit a ProQuest season, and they know what's coming out. And so if you look at the cards that are coming out and you look at the ProQuest season, what you don't want to do is get halfway through the ProQuest season and have to issue a ban. Because then this competitive season is half this meta and half this meta. And so I think the other thing is, if you take a temperature on the overall satisfaction with the state of the game, and you believe that more people would be happier if this were like going into the release of a product that you want people to buy, do you want people to
Not
be
giving them hesitation.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Briar has been toned back.
Yeah.
There's a whole new set. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic right now. And then if you followed up with the stuff we were talking about earlier, you announce the print run data. You make some changes to how you're releasing product from the unlimited fashion that reinstill kind of some excitement, interest, and faith from the entire spectrum. And then you enter this organized play system, and you have these events that people are. It's all that going. It's like you want to create heading into your $1 million OP prize season. I think you want to create as much excitement and optimism as possible.
So on that note, though, here's the other side of that. You have 2 sets in a row consistently that have had out of the gate overpowered things, not in a subtle way either. And to me, what seems like, and maybe you always say this in retrospect, but remember, we had early conversations about this. It's like this Briar ability, before even touching it, seems obviously too good. Like,
I mean, I saw Duskblade and it was like,
how many people
this card's insane.
Can just see the preview of the card and say like, this is too much. Now, I called it wrong on Valiant Dynamo, which you are right to bring up. Because I was also saying, like, this is crazy.
Go back to my Scott Steiner
this is
match.
too good. You're getting a defense every turn. How can this possibly be balanced? And it's essentially a non-starter.
Yeah.
Primarily because Cassie isn't an adult.
Well, and also, fairly to your point, I remember doing the math on that card and thinking it was close. To
You did run the math on it. Yeah.
And it's just valuing what does a free go again once a game get you. And like, it's interesting. Anyways, the other piece of the pie is the game went from taking us 15, 20 turns to 5 or 7 or 8. So Valiant Dynamo's value goes way down if the game only lasts 5 turns.
Right, because the game got faster.
Yeah,
Aggro got better. Yeah.
And if it's chained, by turn 5, you're having to block with your whole hand.
Yeah.
So then the boots are worth none extra at that point.
Yeah.
You're never getting the chance to proc the boots, right?
Yeah, so that's also a confidence issue, though. I mean, like, you've had 2 Ruin Blades come out in a row that you were just straight wrong about. In some way. And, like, the thing that I'm not fully appreciating is, in the article, it's like, we really thought it would be fun for Briar to have, like, there's this tension between you get 3 defense non-attack action that are normally 2 defense. Like, that's really interesting. And it's like, we didn't foresee her playing go again attacks and getting to 4 or 5 or 6 embodiment of Earth. Like,
I mean, so
how is that even conceivable? She has an ability that has go again in the embodiment of lightning, and you're not prepared for 6 attacks in a turn?
I'll tell you 2 things.
What's going on?
One, the chain mistake, I think, was completely banked on the fact that they switched Seeds of Agony from 1 to 0 cost at the end. I've seen that a million times.
Yeah, the last minute.
It's not quite good enough, and this just needs a little punch.
It's a 0.5. Yeah,
and it was like you needed a half cost card somehow, right? So it probably really should have been 0 cost with a penalty, or 1 cost but free if you're playing it from hand, not from banner stone.
Sure, right? Yeah,
it's not quite right? And the easiest thing to do is just say no, it's gone. No errata, you've got to ban it. But I wouldn't be shocked if we get another Seeds. Would either cost 1 or cost 0 from hand, 1 from the Dark Zone, the banner zone.
The Twilight Zone.
With Briar, though, and this is kind of my reality, like if you're looking at sealed and draft or whatever, in a constructed environment, if you build Lexi and you build Oldham and you build Briar and you play them against each other 100 times, if Briar is worse than she is, it's horrible.
Against Oldhim.
Like,
particularly.
Even Lexi is about 50-50.
Yeah, with the cold and with the ice stuff, yeah.
So on my end, even Lightning Briar in full strength previous printing, and this is the concern of people saying, you hit Briar, you hit Ball Lightning, you hit Plunder Run, so that deck got destroyed. But like against Oldhim particularly, it's rough, and against Lexi, it's like a coin toss at the current printing. So
basically, if the internal testing is just the 3 new heroes against each other,
if that's heavily your focus,
it looks kind of okay.
And probably I would bet she originally created an Earth token on the first thing.
Yeah.
And then it was like, this is really...
Like it does now.
This is really just not quite there, right? Or who knows what got tweaked along the way, but it's like when you're playing against Oldhim a third of your games, because you're testing the talents against each other, right? That makes sense to me.
And then it's probably the quickest way, design-wise, to get early takes on where to take cards and where power levels are during the testing process.
Yeah, and so I think if you assume that Oldhim is like a bad match and people are going to be playing Oldhim, and Lexi's not that great of a match, people are going to be playing that. And then you compare it to the pacing of Chain precedes Van. It's like also like, is she really more threatening? She's more consistently fast than Chain across a longer period of time. But she's not as inevitable as Chain, right? So I can see how you get there. Because if you do make her worse to worse, then she doesn't even have a chance against Oldhim. And then you're printing a new hero that can't even play against another of the new heroes, really?
And then I think you also don't want to make the mistake that you made with Chain, where, maybe you realize Briar is way too good in sealed. Maybe that was a known thing. Oh man, like Briar most of the time is going to be the hero to choose in sealed. But if we make that not the case, she doesn't stand a chance in this constructed triangle that we've built around Oldhim and Lexi, because we need Ball Lightning at 0. We need, the Bramble to work like this. And so I was like, well, we don't want to make that mistake, so we'll just leave her a little strong and sealed and kind of balanced and constructed. And so how is it that you let that loose and then suddenly it's better than everything, except for maybe Oldhim and Lexi, right? Like that would necessarily mean...
And Lexi's got the Ranger problem.
Yeah, of course. That would mean that those 3 new heroes are just all operating at a higher level than everything that's come before them. Interestingly,
though, right? Like if you're wanting to play against Oldhim, like the match I found to be most favorable against Oldhim is Visceray. OG hero, right?
Yeah, because you just one-turn punch him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, you have all this defensive stuff? I'm not going to attack. And I'm just going to build, and then eventually I'm going to go crazy on you. And so to me, it's not that Oldhim's on a different power level. He's on a different control level to stop someone that's just pure aggro, right? And the concern with Plunder Run going away is, in general, it was kind of the way that tempo / aggro decks got it going to our Fab Foundation series, right? If you have a 4-card hand, it's worth 12 damage on average. Plunder Run is potentially +3 and a card, which is +6. So a 5-card hand is worth 15. If a 5-card hand is Plunder Run, it's potentially worth 18. Reality.
And that usually is actually what that does.
Oldhim, card and arsenal, is like having a 5-block hand. Because he's got the Crown of Seeds, he's going to pitch. Crown of Seeds is going to go put the card on the bottom. He's going to draw that card back. Now he can block with all those cards. The resources lets him use the shield. He got a 1 prevent from the Crown. If you're on Arcane Barrier, he got a 3rd prevent from that blue card getting pitched. Suddenly, on a Crown turn, he can block for 15. So the case for Plunder Run is that it's the one card that potentially lets you squeak past that number, which is why he had a good match already in that scenario, because there's clever ways to make him leak damage. Rosetta Thorn, I think, is exactly in this pocket because it's a 2/2 at the end of the chain usually. And so a lot of times it doesn't matter if you have a 0 for 4 in hand at that moment. You can only choose one of the 2 things to cover
taxes. There are enough sources that you run out of options to block. And the other option is Dominate, right?
Yep.
Like a 15 damage Dominate attack is something that Oldhim kind of struggles with as compared to, I feel like Bravo with Unmovable and whatnot, like is better set up to block those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's a fine balance. There's like so many things they're trying to do here, but the way Briar makes Oldhim leak is divided damage consistently and like making it a weird order of operations. And Plunder Run was super helpful there. But then Plunder Run against anyone that's not Oldhim makes it like you're on turbo speed.
Yeah.
Because the average deck can only block for 12.
Mm-hmm.
And Briar can easily do 15. So she's going to get the card draw, which means she's really doing 18 plus in a round. And if you have something like Force of Nature going, it's even crazier because it just gets
not heroic.
It just gets out of hand.
And then if you decide not to block, then you're trying to pivot, and then
now I will say
blocking 20 in response.
I absolutely think Rosetta Thorn should have been the Majestic. It should have been the Duskblade of the set. You occasionally get it in sealed. When you do, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But like that being the default, every Briar deck has it weapon, I think is 80% of the
that
sealed
probably
balance.
tilted it. Yeah, I can see that.
If she just had a more standard Runeblade weapon, 1 for 3, right? Or like, who knows, even 1-in-1, right? I don't. 2 arcane damage in that format without Arcane Barrier is like oppressive. It's just, it gives her so many outs that she really just shouldn't have. So I think you can sew that out. But the biggest problem is making a Briar deck that can routinely play against Oldhim that also isn't just insanely faster than every other fast deck.
Yeah. They have to exist on different axes. Because like Oldhim and Bravo being in the same class, they can't just do the same thing in slightly different ways. They have to be better at different things. And Oldhim is supposed to be, it feels like Oldhim is trying to prevent multiple sources of damage. And then maybe like the Guardian defensive strategy is preventing big sources of damage. But I don't know, because you can't just have them doing the same thing differently. Or else why? It's just like, what's the point?
Oldhim's difference should be his talents, right? To Earth and Ice. And so like his offense is, him and Bravo are both good at blocking.
Mm-hmm. That's got to be in the Guardian pie, right? Because they're called Guardians.
The word's Guardian.
They
right?
got shields.
You got to be good at defense. They can both use the shield. They both have hammers. Oldhim gets the Ice Hammer, so his offense is usually less powerful, but
more disruptive,
taxing in like a different kind of way. He has access to all the standard Guardian tools. The only thing that really makes Bravo different are his specialization cards, which is Showtime and Crippling Crush. I want to say Spinal Crush. But he also has Spinal Crush. He also doesn't have access to Dominate like Bravo does. So he has a harder time sticking that kind of damage. So then naturally for him to actually be playable, he's got to be able to more consistently defend because he needs longer to make this happen. He's not going to get damage in like Bravo does.
Lower offense, higher defense.
Yeah. Anyways.
I will say this. It definitely... is the case that the testing process was not adequate, because I think it was a big miss. I don't think it was like, there was this interaction of 7 cards that happened and we just didn't see that coming. This is like Briar slammed every red generic attack in the deck and was unbeatable. It's like
was very
that's
consistent.
got to be found before it gets out into the wild.
Interestingly though, we had like October, so like over a month and a half before that deck showed up. So like you have
but there was pockets of it places though. People knew. I swear people knew.
To some extent I think, but like it in retrospect it became very clear. But even at its height though, like if I were going to a tournament in this meta, I'm not playing Briar. 0% chance.
The post-ban or the pre-ban?
Pre-ban.
Yeah.
Like this weekend, we have the National Championship in Australia and New Zealand. If I were playing any of those events, I'm not playing Briar. And so...
Said the same thing about Chain, but then Chain swept everything as well.
Well, even if I... I could have acknowledged that Chain is probably the best deck at that point.
You don't think Briar is the best deck? Pre-ban?
I just don't think she's a good choice in this meta. I genuinely... If you're going to a National Championship, I think you're playing her or something that beats her.
Right.
And I think there's way more people playing this just beats her.
And is Oldhim the thing that just beats her, or is there new things? Like, did the meta not have time to adapt? Because it did feel fast.
Well,
it felt too fast.
There was a short season of competition before the holidays, and I also think that there's a lot of people that play Magic, and there's so many Magic players that the metas get solved very quickly, and then it's okay. Are you running A, B, or C? Right?
Yeah.
Where are you at in this pie? And that is not as true for Fab. Like it took a minute for Lightning Briar even to show up. And I somewhat think from the announcement a couple months ago from Legend Story that their hope was people would adapt and a new set's coming out and like you don't have to do anything. But sometimes you just got to shake people.
See, because a lot of us would say you didn't have to do anything. Like it to me, it was not like so obvious.
Yeah.
That like
the only thing that would make it that obvious is if you knew what was coming in the next set and it was going to get worse.
And like Brier's going to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a problematic sign.
That's where I'm at.
Like 3 more, like 4 attack go again cards or whatever. They're even better than what she was running in the deck.
Unfortunately, it's really sad. I'm going to tell you who I would be playing right now. It's really sad because I wish there was a giant tournament like right now in this meta because I'd be playing Visceray 100%.
Mm-hmm. I
think his match against Oldhim is really good. And I think his match against Briar is really good.
Didn't old Rogers bring?
He was on Visceray, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
didn't do it.
I think he was on a less than optimal version. He even said it. Like he didn't have his like it wasn't where he wanted it to be, but he thought it was the right deck to be on. But there are things that he's not good into. But it's his Prism is nowhere to be found right now. She's non-existent.
Isn't that interesting?
But there's some interplay there, right? Mm-hmm. I think there are viable choices, and I think it's a little more open than people think. But I get it. If the meta is Visceray, Briar, Oldhim, that's 2 Runeblades and a Guardian. I couldn't be happier. Right?
It's disgusting.
Just knowing what I like to play.
It's absolutely disgusting.
So I'm hoping that I'm fine with these changes ultimately, as much as I love Plunder Run. If what it means is that, because again, let's define a healthy meta.
Yeah, can we actually let's uncork that because in my ideal world, no hero is under 40%. Well, that's hard though, because you don't want every game to just be a coin toss. So, but then piloting skill would. But so if the fundamental if 2 machines were playing against each other. With a rudimentary understanding of Flesh and Blood, it'd be like no lower than 40%, no higher than 60, 65%.
I mean, like if everyone was 50-50, then either it's a coin toss or the biggest thing to me in that world would be the players that can consistently make the right decisions should be winning
and then your top 32 is just coin flips.
Because the skill level is
at that point, everybody's good enough.
But I think the ideal scenario for me, in terms of healthy, would be that there's a way to build any hero to have at least a 50-50 shot against any other hero. But you have to choose. You can't do all of it in the same stack. Mm-hmm. You maybe can't even do it all in the same 80. But when I sit down across from Briar, it needs to be that I don't know which Briar I'm facing. Mm-hmm. There should be enough variety in Briar and Visceray and Oldhim that you don't quite know. Mm-hmm. So that part of it is in the choices you're making both in the deck and then how you're choosing to strategically play against them matter in determining who's going to win that matchup. And it could be that, the more that even in a single sideboard, I think maybe in an ideal is in 80 cards, I can alter my deck enough that I can get to 50-50 in any given match. I have to call it right, and I have to play it right, and I have to consistently play it right in order to win a tournament of size. But I think what you don't want is, and maybe this is the better thing, loosely healthy, pretty healthy, reasonably healthy, exercises most, sometimes and eats pretty good, but occasionally has an Oreo or whatever. Yeah. Would be that you have at least one hero from every class that could reasonably win a tournament. Mm-hmm. Like if you
that's fair.
And okay, maybe you eat a little more than one Oreo occasionally. Most classes have a hero that's playable at all times. 75%. You could take this to a tournament and have a greater than 0% chance of winning. Right?
Yeah, greater than 0. Or greater than 20,
Just some amount of hope.
10 maybe,
the best, if you could find the best player at the tournament, if they could literally win that same event some percentage of the time with a hero from 75% of the classes.
Yeah.
It would be great if every class and every hero was viable. That's never going to happen. And that's the trap I think a lot of people fall into.
You can't have enough variability in the way heroes work for them to always be viable. Because there's got to be questions and answers in any kind of a metagame.
Well, and I just don't think you can, in a world where you're trying to have sealed and draft, set to set, 2 of the 3 sets a year, I don't think you can release cards in such a way that all heroes are always going to be at the same parity. And I think that is part of the game. And I think that's one of the struggles with people that get in thinking they can just play 2 classes. You can absolutely just play 1 or 2 classes, 1 or 2 heroes. But it's not the case that the things you're picking are always going to be having their time in the sun. There's going to be moments where we had 2 Runeblades this year. Like, yeah, of course they're the problem. They have more cards than everyone else. But the meta shifting should create changes and windows of opportunity where, like, you know, I think Viscera was the right choice going into Vegas too. And like, no one thought that. And now there's a lot of people that do think Viscera is a good call in the meta. But like, as the game has changed, he's gotten better in various regards and he got some tools. And I hope that would be true for anybody. So maybe you just play Warrior and maybe they're not quite there right now. But at some point, they should hopefully get their time in the sun, so to speak.
Yeah, or at least a decent shot. Like, that's the thing. I think there's a decent slice of players that are like me in that I want to play what I enjoy and not just feel like it's impossible. Yeah, I'm okay with it being hard. I'm okay with it being unlikely.
I mean, is there a percentage of wins against any other hero that is like the line for you? Like if Azalea could win 30% of the time against any hero?
So my ideal would be the hero that I like to play. The floor would be 30% against an equally skilled opponent on whatever other class there is. 60% against a less skilled opponent.
Sure.
That would be like or 70%.
Yeah, if you are better than them, you could win most of your matches.
Even in an uneven matchup, the skill could push it that far in the other direction. I mean, it's very difficult to get there with that. But if there was like a golden rate, I'd even take, you know what, I would take 10 or 15% equally skilled opponent.
That's pretty low.
I would at 0. So going from 0% to 15%
is a pretty big gap.
Is a great amount. Yeah, but
and you might get to 30 or 40 by having a skill gap, and then
And then sometimes maybe it's like, oh, your class just got really good, and now you're at 50 to 50ish% against an equally skilled opponent. 90% against a less skilled opponent. 95%, right?
Yeah, because like, you know, right now Azalea into Bravo as an example, or Azalea into Prism is probably not comfortable.
As AJ said, if Ranger into Prism feels impossible, and it is.
Yeah,
Bravo is just like, it isn't doable. Like I may be able to pick every single hand and not win.
And if you pick every single hand, you might still only win 5 or 10% of the time.
Yeah. I might win 0%.
Maybe.
I may well win 0%. No matter what cards I put in that deck.
Especially against like standard old Blue Bravo.
Blue Bravo, Healy.
It's just like, I'm going to heal and not take damage, and you're going to run out of arrows.
Yeah, and none of your arrow effects matter.
Yeah, which is a problem. Like, the running out of arrows weapon there's so many inherent weaknesses to that class, it boggles the mind. I feel like at some point they are going to, like, the grand vision is like eventually Ranger's going to get this set of cards.
It could be one piece of equipment that does it,
or a weapon, or I don't even know what it is. But like, I feel like at some point down the line, it's like they're going to be just insane.
Well, you see what happens though. You look at it and you're like, so the problem is you have the same math on your cards. They're just harder to play.
Yeah, it still baffles me that Rangers can't just play from hand blank.
Yeah. Like it only gets... See, this is why traps and arrows should have been this way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Arsenal, this effect.
Yeah.
Otherwise, normal.
Yeah, it's like, 1 for 5 attack that's blank. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
I just shot you with an arrow. Like, just a normal arrow.
I threw it at you.
It wasn't fancy at all.
Yeah, I stabbed you with it. I mean, you can make up anything you want. But like, I don't think that they would be too good if they could just... If literally all their stuff said, if this card's played from Arsenal, this text.
Yeah. Traps, like, okay, it's a 0 for 4 normally, and if I bamboozle you with it, it gets better.
Your traps are literally 0 for 4, 0 for 3, 0 for 2.
Mm-hmm. Fine.
But then they get cool stuff when they're played from the Arsenal.
Whatever. And not avoidable stuff. Like, stuff. Like, hey, you lose hit effects on the... It's on the attack, Zach. It's not even... If Tripwire Trap was on the combat chain, like or for the rest of the turn, no hit effects fire, Awesome. It's for that link
Yeah.
that you already blocked. So the hit effects aren't firing anyway. It boggles the mind. So there's some development things that need to get tightened up here. Like if they're going to be the 10 to 15 year we're the dominant classic
Now,
TCG.
Let's reframe this.
Let's go.
Let's
tighten it up.
Let's
balance those cards.
Think about this for a second, or process some things for a second. This has been really we haven't even gotten to. There's something we were supposed to talk about. I remember, but in almost every CCG ever, 85+% of cards that are released in a set, after you open it and play a sealed draft, are totally just thrown away.
Yeah, that's fair.
So the average Magic set, I don't even know how many cards come out that are like basically unplayable.
Yeah, just fine. Like draft fodder, sealed fodder, what we call them, limited fodder.
Just like the cards you put in because you got to put cards in a pack.
Yeah.
So that's standard of every card has to be absolutely like not even just playable, but good to play. If you're releasing 200 cards every 4 months. Now, I think the way they do the class system and the talents makes that easier to do. Mm-hmm. But if you actually count, go to the National Championship.
They're doing a great job as far as usability. Because the cards that are unusable now are potentially usable later. They're just waiting on the right time.
That's right.
Right? Like even
or the right hero.
Like back alley break line.
Yeah, I always look at that card.
It's like, oh, well, that almost works.
Cadaver's Contraband, I'm always looking at that card.
It's close. Yeah. It's almost there.
Yeah.
But it's waiting for, you can imagine a hero that can take that card and run with it. Like, okay, I can flip. It almost was Azalea, but then it's like, but now it's in my arsenal and I can't shoot an arrow.
Yeah.
So all I can do with my extra action is play the card I just put there. It's a 1 for 5 with Go again. Not bad, but a lot of work to get that done. But you can imagine heroes that can utilize that card, or something like Adrenaline Rush, lower health, get a lot of. I was like, oh well, something like Cavdan or whatever might be the right hero for that card.
I mean, you also, I think about the traps specifically, and you can imagine a hero that's got a reaction to load a trap face up into your arsenal, right? And or who knows where we're going with all these things. But yeah, in terms of playability, even if you go to the National Championship and you just look at the top 32 decks, the number of different cards that are actually in those decks across all those, the different heroes and stuff, that's what is interesting about this, oppressive Briar meta. And I get it with Briar and Chain when your odds of playing against a Briar deck is like 30% every round. It can feel real bad, especially if your favorite hero is like Katsu. And it's like, I'm just getting smoked or smoked by the things that also smoke Briar. I'm just worse than Briar at this thing. But at the same time, like when you actually look at playability and the number of heroes showing up, the number of heroes in the top 8, and go down the list, right? It's a lot higher than the average CCG, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, probably. But there's also, some of the most frontline cards are also having issues. Mm-hmm. I mean, Chain had issue. Briar had issue. Rosetta Thorn's a problem. It's too good. I mean, why?
Well, so in Briar, yes. I also play it in Visceray. It's a really good weapon. But like the number of times, 2 things, that he can actually get go again on attacks, way less.
Yeah.
Like, secondarily, that he actually wants to finish the turn swinging the weapon because it pops all his rune chance. It's kind of like not... It's good. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. And it's particularly good in the aggro reality. But I think in Briar particularly, especially, that's why you see Plundering gets hit and Ball Lightning gets hit.
So that makes it harder for Zetathorn
to actually be able to swing. I mean, it's a pretty big restriction. You have to play an attack and a non-attack. But when a deck naturally is just stuffed to the brim full of those 2 things, it's very good. But also, in the average match, if you see a Rune Blade, you're probably on at least from Arcane Barrier 1. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of times people are switching to Arcane Barrier 2. I would like to see more class equipment that has Arcane Barrier on it.
Yeah.
That's like...
Arcane Barrier is a whole other thing for me.
Well, like...
I fundamentally don't get it.
I think Arcane Barrier is all about the mid-range. So, effectively, you look at like Lightning Briar, 50 red cards. And so, even pivoting to Arcane Barrier is not really an option for her.
Right.
Because it just isn't efficient enough. So, it puts a little bit of onus to not just run an all-red deck.
right
into the game.
yeah
And so I think that is where it kind of comes back around to. But I think what I would like to see is class equipment that isn't. It's like I think about something like Grasp of the Arknight. And they already have it in Crown Dichotomy is a really good example of it's an equipment that does something for you as a class that also offers the Arcane Barrier.
yeah same thing with Skull Horn
Yep.
in Brute.
But if you have equipment that isn't quite as good as your standard loadout, but lets you be a little more defensive, right now it's like it always feels bad because it's like I'm losing a really cool piece of equipment to put on like a Norrøn hood.
Right. But okay, can we finish with Arcane Barrier? Because it's something that's been on my mind for a long time.
Yeah. And by the way, we're definitely not playing today.
There's no way.
We started an hour late because of the delay, and then we got into this. There's too much to talk about. We haven't even talked about the cryptic
Well, it's been a month. I mean,
Everfest tweet.
Oh, we should
tweets.
talk about that too. So, for a second though, can you humor me on Arcane Barrier?
Yeah, I'm
my
in.
worst philosophical instincts. What do we think is the purpose of having Arcane Barrier on equipment, rather than just in the game? Like the way Arcane Damage works is you pitch cards from your hand to prevent it. Is there any grand reason aside from it's annoying if you call the meta wrong?
I mean, it's really, I mean, it's just if you want to have another thing to put on the cards, right? You could default it where everyone has Arcane Barrier 1, as an example.
So, well, okay, let's back it up even more. What is the purpose of Arcane Damage? Because if I'm a designer, I'm thinking, what are some fun ways that I can create distinction in the way that classes do damage? One of them might be, okay, we have damage that can be blocked by cards, standard. One of them is we have damage that can be blocked by resources. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. So now I've got a relief valve for an all blue deck is good against Arcane, but if these all red decks show up, wizards start getting really good.
Yep.
That seems like kind of what I would imagine is the point of Arcane Barrier. Or like as a wizard or as an arcane dealer, if my opponent gets caught in an all red hand, like, oh no, they weren't prepared for my spell and they get roasted, right? So that to me is kind of the reason you'd have it as a design element in a game. It can tax a different part of your opponent while still taxing cards in a kind of a fundamental way. But then putting Arcane Barrier as the way that arcane damage is resolved and dealt with, not only are the replacement effect, like timing is kind of awkward, but you're just basically telling players like, rather than running the equipment you want to run, you run this other stuff instead, and it's just because this person does arcane damage. Like, why not just let players run their class the best that they can run it, mm-hmm. and then have Arcane Barrier as a mechanic in the game that doesn't just tax your sideboard? Like, how many discussions do we have in Vegas that was like, man, I'd really like to play what I actually want to play in the sideboard to prepare for 95% of other matches, but if I get paired with Kano, it's an auto loss, so I've got to waste my sideboard slots on this. Is that fun? Like, is there any game, like, is the game theory of that interesting? Of like, ooh, I didn't call it. Or, ooh, I wasted my 4 slots and I didn't see any Kanos. What a waste. Yeah. Like, that to me is not interesting.
Yeah, that's where I was saying, like, having equipment that I would potentially run in other matches besides just the wizard match mm-hmm. makes it more enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
Because, again, right now, technically wizard and Runeblade, right? I always pack at least Arcane Barrier 1 for Runeblade. And if it wasn't just the plain Arcane Barrier cards that I was playing, it would be more interesting. But to your point, like...
But even if you removed Arcane Barrier in that instance...
I wouldn't be against just being able to pay Arcane Barrier off.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't
that make the most sense? And then all of your sealed and draft, you don't have to do this crazy dance about, oh, do we put Arcane Barrier in or not?
Yeah.
Right? Am I wrong on this? I don't understand. No one has ever been able to prove it to me, because then it's like, oh, well, if we have a second piece of interesting equipment that has Arcane Barrier, that's a cool decision point. It's like, remove Arcane Barrier from that equipment, and now it's a cool decision point still.
Yeah.
Which one do I take for every matchup, or for this matchup or that matchup, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind it, but it's the same, to me, it's like that level of development where, same with the Ranger cards, being able to be played from hand, just blank. And that may not be the right answer, but like the question for me is like, well, do you gain anything
That's what I can't. Nobody. It's like an NFT question.
Yeah.
Nobody can tell me what actually is the value of having Arcane Barrier on equipment.
I mean, you already said it. You just don't like it, which is
taxing your sideboard.
Your resource curve and your sideboard has to take into account that there are heroes out there that do magical damage, and you can either honor that or not.
Resource curve would have to do that anyway.
Yeah, for sure. But
it's just 3 slots.
In the same way, it's like technically, if your goal was to get rid of the sideboard. Like if you don't want to give people 20 slots to fiddle with, that is a thing you would definitely do, right? Which is like, well, this actually removes the need to sideboard into these things, so on and so forth, right? But they do give you 20 cards to manipulate around with, which is where I think like having useful cards that have Arcane Barrier and are useful specifically in other matches too, makes it feel like a less of just a sideboard tax in the event that you might run into these characters. And way more of an actually integrated. It's like, well, this piece actually goes in against these kind of things and these kind of things. But right now, it's strictly, do I think I'm going to see Kano or not? Everyone runs Arcane Barrier, has one Arcane Barrier for Rune Blades, and then anyone that's got a decent amount of blues in deck has to think of the question: is it worth insuring against Kano? Because Kano will get you.
Yeah. It's just like the random, Kano beat me.
Yeah, we were testing him for Vegas, right? And it's like, oh yeah, he can actually just smoke you.
Yeah, I think this is the only possible thing. It's just thematic. I think it's just thematic. As far as I can tell, that's the only...
Which is fine.
Even then, I mean, if you want that theme, be like, have Arcane Barrier, I mean, when you pitch to prevent Arcane, prevent 1 extra or something. But like, I don't know, it's just like...
I mean, there is an element of like envisioning this one-on-one fight, and it's like... you put on your magical boots to fight the wizard. That I'm not against them flexing the equipment weapon system, right?
Yeah. It is thematic, I guess. I just don't know if like technically in a game system that we're playing with cards, it has any real purpose. Anyway. What's the last thing we're supposed to talk about?
We got these Everfest tweets. So Everfest is coming. If you're otherwise unaware, we do have subscription slots open, but if you sign up now, it's too late. We've already charged for Everfest, so it won't be first edition subscription. It won't be until the next set, which is booster box, free shipping at 3 boxes, and an exclusive promo per box.
Next week, we got the preview for Everfest.
Like our preview cards.
Our preview cards and the promo that is going out with all of first edition Everfest subscriptions. And of course, those are already charged, so you're too late on that. But if you sign up for the first ed subscription now, you will be well in line for the next set, and then you will get those promos.
If you were already charged for that, we usually ship those on a timeline to try to get them to everyone in the U.S. On release date. So you're tracking that you'll be able to find on your account. You should get emailed. We'll start updating probably the Wednesday-ish, the week that the set's coming out. For anyone that, I know there's a lot of people that this is their first time going through this process. So if you have any questions, you can let us know. Hop on our Discord or community text for just general stuff going on. But they did this, I don't think they did this last set. I don't remember which set they were doing this for. Maybe it was Crucible. I think it was the last supplementary set where they tweet these like cryptic things. As an example, the one they did was a card with a type that hasn't previously existed for its class.
There's a number of those.
There's a lot of classes that don't have auras. As an example,
wizard attack action hasn't happened. It seems obvious if Icelander is the thing, right? Maybe it's just like a normal wizard, like casting spells like normal attacks.
That would be interesting.
And then it's like deal 1 arcane damage and 3 physical, like that kind of stuff.
Just a straight up attack.
Basically, kind of like maybe Ruin Blade, but inverted to the arcane. So like maybe 3 arcane and 1 physical. So that's annoying, right?
Yeah. There's also like there's a lot of classes that don't have defense reactions. A lot of classes that don't have attack reactions. Specifically, there's a lot of places that could actually fit.
Question here, real quick from Mike Murph. What's the timeline for unlimited subscriptions? No idea, because we don't even know if it's happening.
If it's anything like
could not be. It could be no unlimited.
The last set I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks. But we do another thing we're going to be doing is any boxes that we have extra after, like we charge a certain amount fail, people don't renew. We keep a certain amount in case things get lost or damaged and whatnot, but we'll be putting a restock in on release day of these boxes. So you can head to the website if you decide you want first edition instead of whatever else is going on.
That's right. So the rest of our Everfest, whatever is left over after subs, goes in on our site at MSRP on release day, which we're pretty well committed to. I mean, I guess fully
committed to, yeah.
We've said it many times. So, like, I don't know, if boxes go to $500, like, get on the site quickly because we're doing it.
There we go.
Runeblade attack reaction. That's pretty good. Ranger attack action is a good. Dante wondering, where does the promo fall in power? Better than Scar for a Scar, close, or well below? That's a great question. I think it's an extremely solid promo. I think the art is fantastic.
I think it is in line with Stir the Wildwood.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the relevancy to its class.
I think that's right. That's about right, yeah.
Here's another cryptic tweet. One new keyword that appears 4 times. That's fun.
A new keyword?
Yep. I don't even know what a keyword is. Name a keyword.
Oh,
there's that Stir the Wildwood promo. That was the exclusive from the last set.
What is a keyword? Dominate.
Okay. Yeah. There it is.
We play.
Go again?
We play.
Yeah. I don't know. Technical definitions. 4 times. I mean, there's no way to speculate about that. That could be anything.
Arcane Barrier is a keyword.
Let's speculate about something else. Carnival slot. Last prediction.
Oh, man. I have a lot of thoughts about those.
I'll tell you what I want it to be. I want it to be golden tickets. I want it to be Pro Tour invites, and I want it to be fly to New Zealand and meet the designers.
Like 1 in 10,000 dinner with James kind of thing.
I want it to be a hand-done piece of art on a card that you open and signed by someone. I want it to be...
Yeah.
It's not going to be any of this. The problem with this kind of a hype machine is that it gets away from itself.
And then it's just disappointing always.
Yeah, it's like, I'll tell you what I would love. I would love if the Carnival slot was just full art versions of cards.
That's
like
boring.
Twinning Blade.
Right? Oh, I mean, that sounds awesome.
So, like, most of it is just full art of art we already have, right? Twinning Blade was art that was there. It was just covered up. But, like, full art, alt art, one a box, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Channel Lake Frigid kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you just don't know what you're going to get.
So here's some things. It could be prize tickets. We know the prize wall is a pretty consistent feature. They've got a big organized play.
You
suddenly get 10,000 and you can buy, this crazy big thing.
Literally make a real life Anothos.
It could be.
And if there's one Anothos you can get and it's 10,000 tickets from Everfest, I will tell you what, I'm going to get 10,000 tickets.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be cold foils of just random cards from the past 5 sets.
Well, especially if it was like cards
like commons
that weren't previously cold foil.
That kind of stuff. It could be those kinds of things. It could be a slot that has 20 cards that there's only 5 of. And the rest is like, kind of, fun cards. But then like sometimes you get a card that is so exceedingly rare that there's only 5 in the world. See,
that's the kind of stuff that makes me...
See, but we're talking about first edition and unlimited, and do you print them all, and how do you do it if the collectors want the first and the unlimited? How you make collectors care is you print rare stuff.
It's really easy.
So just print only first edition Everfest, but there's a card that there's 50 of. And 100 of. And different foilings.
The thing you have to be careful of is in Pokemon and Magic, they made so many of those kind of things.
Yeah, it's true.
That none of them are actually valuable. So
that's true.
You want a touch of it, but not so much of it that it's overborne. But yeah,
I think Twinning Blade's a great example.
Yeah, that card is
Don't lock it behind usability. Just lock it behind aesthetics. Yeah. Right?
Like another great example of this, Cold Foil Alt Art Heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally, you make 100 of each in Everfest.
Maybe there's your carnival slot. And it's all the people at the carnival.
Now, you could also go theme here.
Bravo, like hitting the thing that sends them.
We've seen Icelander, Young Hero. I think we've seen what's the free-for-all format called? The team format or the...
Pit fight? Ultimate pit fight? UPF?
So there's a carnival, right? A lot of people there. A lot of fun stuff could happen. I think you could also have it be thematic, which is like carnival-related cards, right? Whatever. Like the
Ferris wheels.
in Arkham yesterday, you had the Hit Me card, and there's the Blackjack card, and there's this whole like Blackjack theme inside the card game.
Right.
So like I could see a whole like carnival theme that is something that maybe is like affects everyone at the table, and like if you really wanted to lean into the theme.
Well, let me tell you though, you gotta be careful on that. You gotta be careful because like. You know, you don't want to pull the rug so hard on this awesome, deep fantasy, high fantasy, kind of gritty. I guess it's not terribly high fantasy. It's not like elves and dwarves, but like this kind of nice, serious fantasy universe that you've created. You don't want to suddenly be like, and then there's clowns. You know, you clown attack. You know,
hey, hold on, let me show you something. You see this this art?
There are clowns.
There it is. Yeah.
Well, okay, then I guess they did it
in the February Armory kit on the poster. But I think that's where like you're at this Everfest carnival, so there could be some kind of competition there that the heroes partake in. It's like a 4-way, almost like arm wrestling, but it's like a pit fight thing. That would actually be playable cards that are maybe generics that are that whole thing.
You know what I want from this carnival, Zach? I want fundamentally good and playable cards for every hero. I don't care.
Step right up. That's what I want.
I don't care about
here's what you're also getting. A way to destroy your own equipment and weapons.
Oh, joy. Finally.
I mean, you'll finally have use for those bow and arrows. You know what I mean?
I'll start Ranger, destroy the bow, and play my generic attack.
I assume it will be some kind of crazy, like, cost you your weapon, but it's this wild thing happening.
Now, that can get weird, too, though.
Sorta. I mean,
you don't want to have the Hail Mary that suddenly you're losing by 20 and then you win.
Yeah, don't go. I thought you meant the other way. So, like, you don't want to create a losable state by blowing up your weapon, but there's only one class that's true for, which is Ranger.
Yeah, right.
Everyone else can still attack usually when they, I think about it.
True.
It's like, if I could do something mediumly pretty powerful and lose Rosetta Thorn for the rest of the game.
Like a big charged up attack.
Mid to late game, I might be willing to, like,
yeah, you also don't want to go old Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Good. Hey, or Exodia,
Exodia, that's what I mean. You don't want to do the thing where like,
Blue Eyes White Dragons are accurate though. That's exactly
I win the game.
I know you've been pining to get Yu-Gi-Oh on stream. So
I have been really interested in playing it because I don't know anything about it.
It's crazy.
I played, I think, everything else.
A lot of granularity in those stats. I'll tell you that. I got the MetaZ problem. All right, 4 equipment cards not previously printed in their class for these zones before.
Okay, so what hasn't been printed for Runblade? Everything, surely.
They have everything. Yeah, but like some classes don't have boots.
Ranger chest does not exist.
Yeah, it's called tunic.
Yeah, right. Warriors got all of it.
They got all of it. Guardian doesn't have boots.
There are no Guardian boots. Oh, Mage Master is what you usually run, right? Ninja have everything? No, it doesn't have. Ninja's running tunic, yeah. Breeze Rider boots.
Don't they have a chest piece though? No, they don't.
I don't think they do. So there's plenty of options there.
Here's my question. Do you think that the existence of Faendale Spring Tunic, do you think we get other Faendale's tunics?
Like summer, autumn, fall? Or autumn
winter?
And fall are the same.
Yeah.
Winter? Yeah,
also,
we should. I sure hope so.
I'd love to see the autumn.
I mean, yeah, come on. Yeah. Spring is a time of growth, right? So it makes sense resources are produced. Fall, is it like taking resources away from your opponent, right? That's kind of going into... Or maybe it's winter. Yeah.
Well, winter would probably help you not lose resources or not... Because it's like a winter coat. Keeps you warm.
Here's your winter tunic. Both players, the first card they pitch produces 1 less resource.
Whew. So hey, I'll tell you what though, I don't know psychologically why this is the case, but Spring Tunic obviously a very sought-after card. I love that card, love the art, love the way it looks. Regardless of print runs or whatever, you were asking me if Tunic, Cold Foil Tunic wasn't worth what it is. Would it spark as much joy for me playing it? And just the feeling I have even now, given the current price of singles and whatnot, of how excited and how hyped I would be to collect the other tunics makes me further believe that it's not about the price tag, but the idea of a cold foil other tunics, I'm immediately I gotta have it. I gotta have it. I gotta have. What season is it? I'm gonna wear the appropriate tunic and we're gonna go to the party. Anyways, I'm excited about that possibility.
Could be an
What's
Everfest, as far as we know.
That's what I'm saying.
I would wear it to a carnival.
Check. You'll like this, I think.
I'd wear it all.
An attack that rewards the opponent for defending it.
You like all attacks. Every one of them does
Well,
that.
preventing damage is great, but imagine if it was like an attack that you get to draw a card if you block it.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that seems good. Like a stronger... I mean, you've got to find levers, right? I wonder how many design levers really are low-hanging left.
I bet you they have a whole long list.
It's just crazy to think about how many ways can you build a 0 for 4 attack, right? Like, okay, here's a 0 for 5 that gives them something if they block. Here's a 0 for 6 that gives them a card if they block.
I mean, they talk about this game being around for decades, so they must have plans.
Yeah.
We already know that there's 6 other talents because there's 6 other regions, I believe. That's what they've said. So there's already obviously 6 other ways they're envisioning on creating cards that interact with the same system in some unique way. So that's got a lot of legs. Just that alone.
You know what? This rewarding you for blocking actually is very interesting because you kind of have to pull levers that prevent the game from being what you don't want it to be, right? Which is like there are decks that just never block. So if we give higher potency cards that reward the opponent for blocking, now not blocking has a higher cost than it did previously.
Yeah.
So maybe now the mid-range stuff comes back. Can we just... Don't we really want it to be everyone's just playing a form of mid-range? A little defensive sprinkle, a little offensive sprinkle. You got to figure out, thread the needle on the matchup, and then play it well.
I mean, I don't necessarily want that. I think it's fine to have aggro and control decks, 2 decks that you don't... You're a mid-range player,
I mean, you're gonna, you know, you can be a little, like, more defensive. You can be more offensive. But not 100% one direction or the other.
I think it's fine to have 100% as long as
there's
a cost to it.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be 100% control, yeah, you maybe beat pure aggro, right? But you need to lose to mid-range, or you need to like lose to combo, whatever it is. And personally, I would go into a tournament not playing a deck that has a 0 to 10% chance to win against anything.
Right.
Like if I have that match, I'm out.
Yeah.
Unless I think
and
that
I'm
match
squarely in.
Yeah, that's right. Unless I think that match just is not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like if I auto lost to Kano right now, I would still be willing to play it. And if I get paired against Kano,
that's a problem.
Fine.
Arcane
but like,
barrier problem.
if playing pure control doesn't come with the downside, that's the problem with Lightning Briar. Playing pure aggro, it's like, what's the downside? And like, your downside is you have a 30% chance to win against Oldhim. Like for the people that are willing to play Oldhim and capable of winning with Oldhim against everything else in 50 minutes, by the time you get to the cut, only the really good Oldhim players can
Cream
make it.
always rises to the top.
That's right.
Man.
In the wise words of Macho Man Randy said. You'll really like this one.
Yeah. Oh, there's more. I was gonna say, if you guys have any questions too, we're about to get out of here. If you want to hear us ramble on about whatever.
An arrow attack unlike any other. Your joke earlier was very funny. Which was
effective?
No, I think you said you mean it does damage.
I think I said it damages you.
Even better.
Somehow arrows have gotten worse.
I still it's hilarious and boggling to me that Ranger got another headpiece.
Yeah.
That's painful.
It is painful.
Yeah, if that had been the chess piece, it would have been a lot better.
I mean, you know,
all the art on New Horizon.
You can see it, right? It makes
awesome.
sense. New Horizon, wide, cross wrap, tall.
Specific.
But it actually doesn't work that way. Because more cards can go taller. So it just kind of like, I don't know. At least if cross wrap was too battle worn like it should be, it's a freaking spacesuit. It should take one slap. I mean, the number of battle worn cards that are like cloth compared to this giant. I mean, literally, you could go to Mars in that thing and it breaks.
Yeah, you could even go under the sea in that thing.
But you've heard me talk about that enough, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's devastating. But I think the thing that bothered me the most actually was the whole idea of Azalea. The great promise was that this is the most disruptive hero. Because of all the thing about arrows is they're disruptive and they have all these effects. But then you introduce a talent that is just more disruptive generally than anything Azalea can do, aside from Run the Ledger. And
And then you give it a ranger that can do all of those things, except for in the ledger, that ability as well. So then you're left with a hero that, well, what is my purpose? What is my use? Why am I here?
I mean, she does effectively use the arsenal slot in different ways.
So the crazy thing about Azalea is you want it to be like she has dominate, but then you give the bow dominate for Shiver.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Why would you ever do that? I don't understand.
Yeah. Well,
I'm in pain thinking about it.
Yeah, we could spend a lot of time on that. That said, here's what I want to finish with. I think, which we didn't quite get to today in actually playing a game, but
I got some good questions too.
I think that after the ban errata, mistakes or not, however you want to be critical of that decision, it doesn't really matter. The thing to me is,
yes, please.
Here's what I think is about to happen. I think that Everfest is going to release. I think we're going to get spoiler week next week, and the hype train is going to go to the moon.
Okay.
I think there's more. I think there's more people playing this game than ever. I think that the set's going to come out. I think every hero is going to be interesting again because there's going to be new tools to explore, a whole new meta to solve. I think that post preview season sets coming out, everyone's going to be excited. This week is actually, or next week. When's it? What week are we in?
What day is it?
Next week is the Welcome to Wraith farewell. A lot of stores are hosting. A lot of people are very excited about that.
Still the best set to learn. Oh my gosh.
It's very good.
Honestly, I think about trying to throw people into Tales of Aria or even Monarch. Like, hey, play these blitz decks. It's like...
There's actually a fair amount of people that has been their intro.
Yeah.
And they haven't complained about it.
Because, like, man, I think, like, if you're playing, like, Katsu versus Dory,
dude,
it's
particularly,
like, dude, this is the game right here.
If Lexi is your first hero, it's like you get Ranger and... Anyways.
It's a lot to ask.
So that event's coming up. Next week's preview week, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. Because there's just new cards for everybody, the whole new game, and a new meta because of the bannings and stuff.
Yeah, they said there's new cards for everybody.
Yeah, and then the set's going to come out, and then like a week or two later, the ProQuest season starts, and then that's like a 4 or 5 week period, and then a month after that's the first Pro Tour event, which is the big April. We don't know very many details about yet. Then we're going to have the rest of the big events happening, the callings, right? There's another Pro Tour in July.
When's the set after Everfest supposed to come out?
June.
And when is like the big calling season and stuff?
So we don't know. I think there's supposed to be 30 callings in the world this year.
Okay.
Because there's 10K at each, and there's 300 grand going to the callings.
Yeah,
then April's the Pro Tour, 100 grand. July is a Pro Tour, not in the U.S. apparently. Also 100. World Championships in November. June's going to hit, new set. July's going to hit, Pro Tour / and who knows where all these other events are going to be sprinkled. But I think that the game is about to be at its best state yet.
It's an inflection point for sure.
Yeah. And
this right here is an inflection point. It's either going to go down or way up.
I think that's
the only way it goes.
This is probably the most critical moment in the game's history. And we'll see. We'll see if Legend Story delivers on, I think, what would be exceptionally powerful in this moment, because a lot of the pieces are there. New set, new meta, biggest OP season you've ever done, full blown first world championship.
Your set's got to be good.
Like, if this set / this meta is really good, I think that this is the inflection point, right? It's the bottom of the market. I think it's the turn. And I think they need to do some stuff. I think you need to announce what the plan is for Unlimited / the future of releases. I think the collectibility...
Tell me about generics and talents too, would you? Get me excited about what I want to know the foundational system here.
I think the collectibility of the set really matters. Just from the stats, it seems like the average number of boxes you would need for a playset is higher. I think that the cold foil count I saw someone talking about the other day is higher by a good clip.
Yeah, there's whispers.
And so we'll see what they do. But all that to say, I think, as we were talking about earlier, we can examine all the things going on and be super critical of those particular things. But in my experience over the past decade plus in this industry, this is still going better than any other game I've been a part of.
Yeah, definitely.
So
most of them are long dead by now.
It's easy to get wrapped up in should they have banned Plunder Run or not, right? Or how many mistakes is like okay to make. But making a game that you have to hit print on 6 months in advance, physically, in an environment where you only have so many people testing it, you can only spend so many hours testing it, and you want to have something that has enough depth and nuance that you can develop it for 20 years, but also be able to put products out every 4 months and nail the balance of this. It's not perfect at all, but the things that aren't perfect, they're communicating about and they're trying to fix.
There's a genuine effort and passion behind it for sure. I mean, that is the most important thing, but it's not going to make you a successful publisher.
Yep. So all that to say, I'm still exceptionally optimistic. And there's going to be, and there has been in the past couple of months, and there will be probably for the next couple of months, when people can't buy a box for $100 and sell it for $500 immediately. There's going to be some negativity.
When does that ever exist in the world?
There's going to be some negativity and it's just the game is becoming what it is.
A game, not an investment vehicle.
Yeah, and like this idea when the game first came out that, I'll pick Warrior and play Warrior and Warrior's playable, great. And it's like the idea that you can play one class and it's always going to be competitively viable
and interesting with every new set
is going away. So you're kind of
away in tails,
and maybe they'll bring it back. But the point of all it is, the game as it actually is going to be for a long time is we're getting to that stage, and either there's a whole bunch of people that want that experience or not. Even with the organized play, right? It's like this is what we should pretty much expect. I think moving forward, some version of what we're getting this year. Is this something that is engaging enough for you as a player? And like, are you happy with this experience?
Man. Yeah, all eyes on the set after Everfest for me. If it's another Tales style, 2 to 3 siloed classes playing within a single talent or 2 talents, no generics, that's a tough sell.
I would bet, you can clip me on this in 6 months if you're watching this and you're like, such that. I would bet that the set is going to have 4 classes, and I would bet that we get some amount of generics. I bet we get more basic class cards. Okay. Among those 4. And I would bet that it introduces 1 or 2 new talents. Kind of like Monarch.
Like Monarch.
Yeah. Also, another thing I forgot to mention on the speculation trailer, you said had questions. I just went off
That's
on a
fine.
tangent.
Let's go, yeah. I'm here all day.
The play mat that's got Bravo on it that we've seen, that got previewed from Everfest. Have you seen that?
No, show me. Bravo on an Everfest playmat?
Yeah, it looks like a stud.
You know what I was thinking to myself? The real problem with Flesh and Blood right now is that Bravo is not good enough. Doesn't have enough tools.
I think this all the time. No, it's this playmat. See,
cool.
He's got his fancy carnival costume on.
Bravo.
But they say in the description, this is the January Armory kit.
Our carnival slot's going to be those heroes in carnival mode.
See, that's
cold foil carnival
I know.
heroes.
I'm with you, dude.
Yeah,
so
Azalea like sitting on the dunk chamber, getting balls thrown at the dunk booth.
I just pictured her off in the corner in the dark by herself, being angsty. The description of this, and it's worth pointing out too, mentioning the Armory League that is happening on the Discord channel.
I love that. It's my favorite thing.
I absolutely love being a part of it, but also just seeing everyone engaged on that. If you're looking to play regularly and you have interest in the webcam lifestyle, check that out if you're unaware of it. Anyways, in this description it says, to People's Champion, and then in quotes, Bravo, star of the show, playmats. Bravo, star of the show, to me, seems to be referencing the name of a card.
Like a new hero.
Like a talented...
Because previously it's Bravo Showstopper.
That's right.
Now it's Bravo, star of the show.
That's right.
But are they going to do this bamboozle where it's all these young heroes that I can't play in Constructed, and then I furiously throw my cards into the screen?
I don't know. But here's the other really interesting thing beyond that. So, one, it makes me think we're getting another version of Bravo.
I can't help but agree with you on that.
Another way to make it really interesting, to always have characters and classes be viable, is to have multiple versions of the same hero that do different things.
How many different silos are you looking for?
I mean, hey, but here's...
Now, if it's talented, okay.
That's what I'm saying.
At least play in an existing
If
pool.
you get because in the lore, he becomes, there's this like ancient order of guardians, right? That is reemerging as all this weird stuff starting to go on in Aria. And he becomes one of these things. So I would assume he does become a talented hero in whatever fashion they're in. Anyways, here's the most interesting thing that you probably aren't aware of, that you should be. It's the little kind of minute detail that people like speculate about, right?
Bring it on.
Yeah. All right. So on this poster,
Here we go.
of him doing this, right? It's like the stores get this poster, they can hang up and put details of their thing. At the bottom, it has a little sentence.
Uh-huh.
It says, designed for booster draft.
Huh.
On the Everfest poster with this kit.
Now, did they just make did the graphic designer just make a mistake and forget to remove that sentence?
If they did,
That happens.
let's look at the February Armory kit. Different poster with the clowns on it, on the bottom. Designed?
No way.
For booster draft.
Come on then. What? So you can draft this up?
I don't know. That'd be pretty cool if you could, wouldn't it?
Or they're going to do this weird thing where there's a special draft format where it's like the carnival mode. And you can only use these heroes, and then there's a certain carnival draft you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Less exciting for me. You know, I'm a funnies guy. I'm not looking for like 20 different formats. I'm looking for the game.
I'll tell you what though. I would be very pleased if they finally released the details on a cooperative PvE game.
Yeah, that would also be a thing.
That's another thing they could do this year that I think would make the value of every card go way up. A multiplayer cooperative thing, you can build a lot of weird decks in that, and it's more thematic and all this kind of stuff. And I think the number of people that would potentially become aware of the game if there was that version would be very high.
Apparently, the physical poster does not have that.
Oh, really?
It was removed.
Ooh,
Speculation that.
Dead.
Wow, graphic designer mentioned on the performance review.
Man, that would be rough.
Here's one thing speculatively that I'm willing to throw into the pot there. If you think right now, if you printed a talented Bravo, let's say the talent is give me a random talent, music. You know, let's say Bravo there's a bard and he's singing or whatever. So let's say it's symphonics. I don't know, what would a talent be? Sonic? What is there any talents that we know are going to happen? Shadow, light, elemental. Nothing.
I don't know. There's the alchemist.
That might be a class though, right?
Could be a class. Could be a talent.
So let's just say there's a.
Can't you picture a mechanologist? Mechanologist is a talent. Mechanologist is a talent, by the way.
We're sure of that.
I'm willing to bet on it.
Okay.
I know it's not for sure, but I'm.
What an elemental, shadow,
absolutely willing.
Light. Let's say that Grace or something is a talent. I don't know. Okay. I'm trying to figure out something that's in that category. So let's say you print a Grace Bravo. That's the talent. Now that Bravo would be able to play every single card that current Bravo can play, minus the 2 specializations. So you have 2 new specializations to play with, and all the same card pool of an existing Bravo. And you have a talent that doesn't have any talent support currently. But you see, it's like Star Wars TCG. But it's like, this talent is coming, and it might be 5 sets later that this Bravo gets new talent cards.
That's one of my favorite things from the Star Wars CCG. Obviously, all the stuff's out now. It's an old dead game. But they would release cards that would be like, if Emperor Palpatine's in play, and then he is not out yet.
Yeah.
And he wasn't out for 2 more years.
Yeah. Somehow he returned.
Yeah.
At the end.
You know, you could... I mean, the downside of that is like... And if you're going to do it, you do it in a supplemental set.
Right.
Because you can't have sealed draft cards just be...
And it's cold foil, totally, and it's beautiful, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Can you imagine getting some hero with a talent that you just can't play, but all we can do is look at and speculate for years?
Well, that's the thing. The crazy thing is you could play it the same way you can play it now. It has access to the exact same generic cards, right?
You just don't have the...
and the class cards. Yeah. So then it's like you're just waiting, like, oh, when is that talent going to drop? So that this hero suddenly gets this suite of cards that can support it.
I do not think that's a bad idea.
And maybe Azalea is Shadow. And so, like, you immediately get support from the current card pool. And there's a banished mechanic that she's now playing with. And so you have some that are currently supported and then some that you know are supported in the future.
It would be cool.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I mean, I hope
that happens, actually.
I would love... like I said, one thing Legend Story has done every time a set comes out, I love that they do this, is there's at least one thing that is unexpected and different than anyone is speculating. And I would, they have a lot of tools in their belt to do that kind of stuff. And I would love to see them continue to just make it, I mean, it's such a collector's item at that point, right?
Yeah.
I remember Star Wars TCG would do the, like, the first one was a Han Solo that was coming out in the next set, but it was alt art foil.
Yeah.
On the bottom, it said coming spring, whatever, in A New Hope or whatever the set was. So that's stuff I think you can really lean into. And that's the kind of thing you could make 50 of.
You got a carnival slot, right?
And it's like there's literally 50
Get
of
weird.
each of the 4 things that are from the future. And like, here you go.
Okay. Well, that about sums it up.
Yeah, someone was saying, what about dual class heroes? I think we'll get dual
much.
class, dual talent stuff.
Oh my gosh. I mean, really though.
You eventually you're just stacking
That's
stacks
fine,
and stacks,
I guess,
right?
as long as you're not restricting things more.
Yeah.
It's already what? Talents, classes, specializations? Are you like 3 restrictive elements?
I mean, I think the dual class stuff, at least,
It opens.
it also means you can put in a single set cards for more classes. Right?
It's also dangerous.
It is
You
dangerous.
were not thinking about how Warrior and Runeblade cards played together.
Unless you were.
Maybe you were. Or
But-
Rosetta Thorn with 16 different attack reactions.
Yeah. But all that to say, I assume they would be very careful about it. But I wouldn't be surprised. Warrior Guardian, right? Or like, and you could do stuff like right now, a lot of the elemental heroes have multiple elements. And we see Icelander with 1. And so I can easily see the Earth Guardian Warrior. It's like, or Elemental Guardian Warrior that has the Earth type.
Interesting.
So you're only getting 1 element, but you're actually getting a second class. And like,
Weird.
yeah, I mean, if you actually think you're going to have a 25+ year game, you got to have 1 million. One little thing changes the entire
There's
thing.
1,000 levers.
Yeah.
Now just, balance it.
But, if the Warrior Guardian Earth character is too good, that's why you have Living Legend, right? Like,
Kind of, yeah, but they're not leaning on that very much, are they? They're banning stuff ahead of...
to me, the Living Legend isn't that the solution for that problem. It's eventually Bravo is going to rotate out, and that's going to create a window for us to give a new look at all the Guardian cards. That's really all that is to me.
It's not about balancing power level. It's just about a sustainable... Everything has that Mono no Aware thing from the L5R. Everything is eventually going away.
Yeah. And honestly, I won't be shocked if, like, we have a lot of young heroes around, like Cassie, that, because they may actually represent time. Where, like, we thought we would get those adult heroes faster. And it's like, oh, Dory retires, right? She's now 40.
She's a legend, and Cassie's now an adult.
And it's like 20 years has passed, and it's like, now we have her, and then now Dory's a mentor, right? Or like maybe there's an older version of Dory that's not a warrior anymore, and she's a... If you actually are sitting there thinking, we want this thing to be a 20+ year enterprise.
And a story.
And, I mean, story's in the name of the company.
Yeah.
Then I think...
Living Legend Story. They are a studio.
That's right.
Legends, stories.
So
maybe...
I think there's a lot of stuff they probably have planned that will get 10 years down the road, and they'll do it, and then it's like, you were planning on this kind of a thing the whole time. So
I
I'm
hope
excited
so.
to see what
I mean, we
they
could
do.
be baking in we could be baking in that level of competence too. We have
Yep.
no idea if that's true.
Absolutely.
I mean, the poster said the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not. It's down in the impenetrable fortress of like.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's the constant balance. Same with the carnival slot, right? I mean, we could go to the moon on what that could be, and then it happens, and it's like less exciting because, So ultimately, I think the best stance is just, if you're enjoying it, keep enjoying it and be along for the ride.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think there's reasonable critiques, and we'll see what happens because one Tales of Aria is something for me. The third Tales of Aria is like, oh, okay, well, it's going to be like 5 wizards all doing their thing per set, and it's going to be like, 3 different things here. And it's like if they're all going to be contained and like that, then it's like, okay, this is a limited experience game.
Yeah, and I think it's fair they're doing a lot of different stuff, and so it's not going to be all hits. Mm-hmm. And the thing I know about them is that they care a lot and they're learning, and we'll see where it goes in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very excited. So we'll be back next week. Everfest previews.
Yeah, Everfest previews, and then what are you replacing your plunder runs with?
All sorts of stuff. I mean, my Earthbriar deck is still exceptionally good.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little different. Plunder Run was
Well,
good.
now we're all very relieved. Thank goodness Briar's still okay.
Yeah, I think she'll be just fine. Yeah. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us.